everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of A Chance of TBD. We are sitting together tonight with two of our lovely Ashe and Shade Committee members. The DM, I'll let you introduce yourselves. So, the DM.
Oh, okay, great. I wasn't sure if that was an intro or a corrected sentence. Hi, it's been a day. Hello, I'm Curtis. I am the DM of the Ashe and Shade Committee. Fiber Change's like original game and also the longest game on the channel, which, looking back at my notes as we have been doing for this bit, has been terrifying. But yeah, I'm the reason that my players have taken very specific spell choices, which is something I've never got to do as a DM before, and I'm here for it. As the person who has suffered the most from my shenanigans, hi Rachel.
Hi, Curtis. Don't worry. The definitely hasn't traumatized me. It's fine. You know, we're making it work. And oh, is this part where I introduce myself?
Where you introduce yourself. That was.
Oh God.
Yes.
Sorry. Hi. I was distracted by my work for tonight. My fine craftsmanship. Hi, I'm Rachel. I play Thalia, who is the Asimir lore bard and / backup lore keeper for this whole campaign. And I love my whiteboard and writing down stuff and driving Curtis crazy. Also making it, I enjoy making it harder for him to kill our characters. So we're working on that. Yeah.
But yeah. Awesome. I'm so excited to sit down with the two of you. But before as we dive in, tonight's buddies dive together, bestowing delicious testimonies, bewildering discoveries, troubling battles, dubious tasks, blatant denials, torched buildings, destroying terrors, bringing down threats, building defenses to brighten the days of those to come after y'all. So
we have to follow this up, Curtis.
Listen, she threw out all my dirty limericks. Like I have nothing for this.
Well, now I'm a little embarrassed. This is gonna be awkward. Okay.
Yes. So
listen,
for those
you both did homework for this.
For those of you who are joining us, as Curtis mentioned, we're going to be discussing a recap of the Ashe and Shade Committee. This is the game that started this channel. Those of you who have been with us since the beginning, we love you. Thank
we're sorry.
You. We're sorry.
Us through some highs and some lows.
You have seen all of the things. But yeah, for those of you who are also just joining us, this is kind of where we can get everyone up to speed, and also myself, because I jumped in at like season 2-ish. I 100% also missed the part that we're not talking about.
The redacted portion that has been sealed. Also, quick shout out. Hello, Questline and friends. Thank you for the raid. It is lovely to see you, fine friends. I saw an enormous crab and got afraid and came over here. But all will become crab, I guess, including this stream. So we had a good run.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It was good.
Yeah,
good
the
times.
Ashe and Shade crab mitty begins.
Yeah. But yeah, so I kind of want to jump it off because I don't even think we've really talked about how this all started. Not just Ashe and Shade. I mean, Ashe and Shade started it all. So I'm gonna start this with Curtis being this your brainchild.
That's pressure.
So yeah, kind of let's jump into your world. Explain the world that you've give us a word picture if you don't mind.
Oh, I hate that my own words have been turned against me. I was expecting, like, where does the story begin? Oh God, is this what it's like to be one of my players? I hate this. So no, it's fine. It's great. It's fine. Quiet, Rachel. You quietly applauding. No, so because this all started because Chris, our lovely Ronan, wanted to play D&D, and Josh, whom I've played D&D with before and run games for, Josh was like, Curtis needs to run this game. And the whole thing kind of started as a riff of the March of the Machines, which is an old 3.5 module, like adventuring module for like mid to high level players. Because Modrons are great, and I love them because they're just the weirdest things. And so it kind of started as that. You know, here's a little one shot. Let's give it a whirl. Try to get this game going. And essentially has been built from there. This was not a game I came in with, here is this massive world that I have constructed, and I'm going to distribute it all for my players to find. A lot of it has been narratively generated. A lot of it has been sort of pulled from things that players have said and inside conversations with players and working that into the world and building a world that is not mine. I did not make Harrogor by myself. I have not built this world the Ashe and Shade Committee lives in by myself. I have no claim to that as other famous DMs do. Because yeah, I have absolutely taken ideas and influences and interests that my players have and found places to make them work. Which is honestly more fun for me because I work best when there are guideposts and things like that. If you throw me in an open field and say, make me something, I'm like, oh no. But if you go, hi, I want to be like, for example, we'll talk about Chris because he's not here. And he gave me a little more to work with than Josh did. He was like, I want to be Frozen North Barbarian. Here's an idea for backstory. And I went, great. Here's an entire northern part of this continent that I haven't thought about, but here's what it's populated by. And let's build some stuff out here. And what's important to these people and how these people function. And it's sort of just grown from there into this massive monstrosity that I could not keep track of without the help of our diligent lore bard.
We love you, Rachel. Your whiteboards bring us so much joy.
I have more saved screenshots of your whiteboard than anything else in my phone. Because honestly, I'm like, oh.
Lies, you have cats. That's a lie. You have cats. So.
I don't save those screenshots. I can just turn over and look at him. Anyway, yeah, my fat bastard can't see it. But yeah, so that's really like the world has kind of been started out small and kind of in a module sense, which is how a lot of folks get their start in D&D, and that's a really good way to jump in because you don't have to build thousands of years of history if it doesn't matter to the players. Like, with the exception of Rachel, no one cares about a war or an emperor who was assassinated thousands of years ago. But I can talk about how these wars and assassinations have shaped the world as it is today. And as we'll get into, one of those choices was really kicked off by Chris complaining about the lack of magic items in this campaign. But that's the story for a little later on. I don't want to tangent us this early.
So before we even start talking about the narrative, Rachel, I want you to talk a little bit more about Thalia, and as you were building Thalia to kind of come into the Ashe and Shade Committee, because you kind of built the way that Kurt is it's all character driven. You built your own kind of home.
Yeah.
And why you were joining.
Yeah, I was supposed to just be a guest player. If you saw the stream last week, we talked a little bit about it. I was supposed to be a guest player, and because I worked nights at the time, and then it just kept working out that I could make sessions, so I just kept coming back. And so then pandemic hit, and we were all kind of locked inside going crazy, and I decided, I was like, Curtis, can I make... I can be there every week now, because we have nothing better to do. Can I make my backstory corner? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so he was like, yeah, give me whatever you want. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he was like, tell me a little bit what kind of businesses are there, nowadays he just jumps right in with, okay, tell me the socioeconomic political structure, and I'm like, thanks, happy evening to you too, Curtis.
What a lovely Tuesday we're having. Quick, tell me about how their economy fails.
Correct, that's where we're at now. But this being my first time playing D&D, he was very kind, and I just kind of was not doing what I was supposed to be doing on a Zoom and decided to just start squiggle drawing, and that became my corner of the world. And I just put some dots on the paper randomly. I have it in my notebook. I just was like, here's a squiggle, and here's some dots, and here's some more squiggles. That's going to be an island, I guess. And you know what? Maybe some more islands. We'll do a whole archipelago, which is actually popping up now. And then I just sent it to Curtis, who screenshotted it, which is, I guess, where that all began. And
I feel like that's how all maps are made.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that he was like, what do you think about this? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me. Or I'll find out later, I guess. There's a lot of, I've seen some games where characters gave that agency to their DM, and I was like, you know, that seems really cool. So there's a couple things like, what's up with her mother? She didn't know. And I said, Curtis, all right, something happened to her mother. We don't know. She's not there, but I don't want her dead, per se. So I was like, have fun. Go. And then he's been leaving hints as the campaign has continued, to the point now that I know who she is and met her and everything. So there's a couple things I left up to him, because I didn't want to know everything about Thalia, and honestly, I didn't know everything about her when I first created her. She's very different than where she started. And yeah, now it's a little scary, because I think she knows more about what's going on than I do.
How the turns of tables. I love that.
Correct.
But yeah, so now that we've learned a little bit about both of you all and how like you kind of came to this game, let's start off with the beginning. How did the story begin? Curtis, as you so blatantly said earlier, where did the journey of the Ashe and Shade Committee found?
Oh God. So that's a loaded question. Because the committee itself didn't come together for a while.
Like 6 months or something like that.
It took a very long time to get like the adventuring crew together. For you Critical Roles fans, we didn't have our Bell's Hells moment until well after they had theirs. As far as like in the narrative structure, because it was just kind of this mishmash hodgepodge of stuff. But I hate, personal pet peeve as a DM. You start in a tavern, is overplayed, is overdone. So how do we make that better? You could do Prison Break, a la Morrowind, which I think, or was that Oblivion? I can't remember. One of those games has a Prison Break, which is not a bad way to get out. But depending on how your campaign starts, you can be a batch of adventurers who have gotten to know each other a little bit. Yes, it is Oblivion. Thank you. I've having played more, I like some of the other systems where they like you have some pre-existing background together before your game kicks off. But this game started off with my 3 players. Core, a Storm Cleric Dwarf, played by our friend Zach, who is in the Idiot's Guide to Deicide game. Lythar, our buddy Kendrick, who unfortunately has no longer been able to really make our games because of scheduling and things. And Josh, actually, the 3 of them sitting together, and they were sitting basically in an interrogation room, and the captain of the guard came in and said, all right, I need each of you to tell me what you were doing when the inn burned down. So it was a sort of improv exercise building off of how each character responds to authority, how each character, are you going to help? Are you going to be obnoxious? Are you going to just lie to their face? Because they didn't know what had happened. But what each person saw informs the next steps of the story and sort of snowballs that. And then after a while, the guard left and they met a Modron. It kind of popped up. It was like, greetings and salutations, and was immediately squashed. And so a second one popped up and said, greetings and salutations, which is like the terrifying through line of Modrons for the entire campaign. And that's really just like, that's how that started. And then they had to go, there was a missing family. Like, they had to go investigate this family's house. They ended up burning the house to the ground. Survived the night. The next night they went out and went to go continue their investigation. It was just a small, like, third or fourth, I think they were level 3. Small little adventure. Get them started, and then the ball continued to snowball from there. And I don't want to say too much more, because I know there is some, I don't want to take away from Rachel's hard work. Because Rachel, surprising no one, did more work than the DM at the time in preparation for this.
Are we ready for it?
God.
Are you
Is
ready?
it time?
Are we ready to see how Rachel is the most extra human being on the planet, and we love her to death for it?
We have like
Look.
brought the whiteboards
To you.
to you, all of you.
Don't worry. It'd be real boring to have Rachel writing out all of these things and showing it to you, and the screen is really small. So we've made a small adjustment.
Callus, this is for you.
It's better than a whiteboard, Callus. It's a PowerPoint.
The digital whiteboard, if you say.
Surprise!
So, Rachel, if you just want to tell me when to hit next slide, I will control it on my end of the world.
Okay. I guess I better have it up too, so I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Alright. Yeah, this is a quickly made guide to the Ashe and Shade Committee.
I
It's-
love it.
It's, me, I am tired. And we decided this kind of last minute, so I made this in about an hour today.
What? I thought you were...
I made this after work
I
today.
am irrationally, like...
I
I'm
did- and
annoyed
this-
because of the level of polish on this. I'm a little annoyed.
I made this in an hour after work today, and this is all off the top of my head. I did not reference my notes at all for this, so...
Yes.
This is how you find out what's
Yeah.
really important to your players. What stuff has lodged in their brain or been completely removed.
So, from your friendly local whiteboard scribbler, here we go. Take it away. Next slide. All right. Who's who? So, this is a list of all of our player characters. Many of them are no longer. Oh, you can't read it all, my dude.
Oop. I can fix this. I can fix. Oh God, I might not be able to fix this.
Oh no!
Working. Hold, please.
Oh.
I think I got all the text on there.
Most of it.
But there you are.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Again, Rachel built a whole fucking PowerPoint, and I can't put it in OBS correctly. How are we doing today, everybody? Terrible.
Anyway, so this is a list of our player characters. A lot of these, I tried to mark down who's currently playing and who's been with us, like Lythar, Elven Ranger, who multiclassed into Druid. Thrall. These are a lot of names you might hear as reference, but you may not see on screen anymore. So Thrall was the half-orc samurai who partnered with an Oni demon, which was really cool. He's off. He sometimes guests. So Brandon, if you're here, hello. Core, which Curtis talked about, the Dwarven Storm Cleric. Thanks for telling me that, because I just updated that. I just put a lot of question marks there next to his name. He was preseason mainly. Did not make it to any of the reporting games.
Pre-you, I think.
Correct.
You,
that was
you
pre-me.
and Core never overlapped.
Correct. We never did. Maury, played by our good friend Deeps, was a Rock Gnome Artificer, Season 1. He decided to switch out characters after playing Maury for a while. He wanted to try something different, which is something that we've kind of done at this as a table, which is great. From Curtis's thank you for being flexible, and for the table for being flexible, because people have kind of brought characters in and out if they want to try something new. So Deeps actually switched to playing Firo, Seasons 2 and 3, Warforged Clockwork Sorcerer. I believe that was still in build. I don't think that was official yet when he was playing the Clockwork Sorcerer.
Yeah,
So
he was
playing around
technically Unearthed Arcana, but when we did
yeah,
that, oops.
it was really fun. Ronan, who is currently playing our Goliath Barbarian, Lami, another current player, Dragonborn Paladin, Warlock, Fighter. It's been a journey for Lami, which we'll get into. R66Y, aka Robbie, Warforged Warlock, Barbarian.
And King.
And spoilers.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to respect his title.
And then who switched out for a little bit to Patrick, the human cleric of the Oak Father. Mike, who played Robbie, and Patrick kind of switched out because he was getting a little bored with one character and wanted to try something else. And then there's me, Thalia, Aesmir Lorbard. Yeah, that's currently all of our player characters.
Are you the only one that didn't multi-class?
Yes, I think. Yes, I am currently level 14 Bard, the only non-multi-class, because I am like Bard all the way. Screw y'all can take your multi-classes and have a great time with them all.
I think Ronan just read Action Surge and was like, I want that.
Except for, so it's weird because Thalia, she because of Bard, she dips into other spellcasting books. So she has cleric spells. She has meta magic now because she picked up that feat. So she has some other things from everyone else. But she is a pure Bard build, and I love her for that. All right. Go ahead, switch slides.
Yes, and yes, this is technically a 5th edition campaign, using the core books and
inspired by 3.5e. I learned today.
Yeah, at least the core of that. That core is so long gone at this point. We are so far past that.
We'll get into that. But now onto the who's actually important.
Very true.
Our two animal companions, the actually important ones. Cora, who's a Moonwolf companion to Lythar, has the ability to shapeshift. Don't know how or why, but we don't ask. And she is the bestest girl and has more kills than probably most of us. So yeah, Cora's the best girl. Nothing can happen to her. And every now and then, we've got, if you've seen Critical Role, they've got the earpieces. We have something similar for long distance, and we just call up Lythar. And we're like, hey, put Cora on the phone. We don't want to talk to you, actually. So yeah, we call Cora, and then Helga is was a hippogriff to start, turned into wyvern. Now that the paladin thing's gone, we don't see Helga anymore. But that was Lami's found steed, who brings all the sass, all the eye rolls, and she's great. You respect Helga. We respect the nice ladies here. So these are the actually important characters. You don't see them as much because their player characters have made some different choices, aka aren't able to play with us anymore and
lost his
stop
powers.
being lost his powers. So, just some very similar choices. And yeah, next. Preseason. This is before my time, so
yes.
Any apologies, and Erica at any point stop me. Got questions for Curtis or myself. This is something that you talked a little bit about this already. It was your group. I thought it was more than the 3 of them, but they started Long Pike.
It was those 3, and then we picked up Chris very shortly after. Chris came in at session 3, which on YouTube is the first session we recorded. So that's technically session 3, but kind of session 1. It's all on YouTube if you want to watch me be 3.5 years younger and not know anything about what I'm doing on the internet.
I love it every once in a while, just going back to those.
Oh, it hurts. Oh, God, it hurts me. I can't look. It's like a car crash that I'm in.
Anyway, so they find Ronan in this mysterious complex. There's a strange virus that is turning things into metal creatures, and they also find some humans, like 2 kids, and trying to save them from the virus. Core accidentally dumps the virus into himself with a nat 1. And as Curtis says very often, this is the moment that kicked off the plot. That decision of, how did you put it?
Do I cook the kids?
That's what it was. Because there was a lightning bolt. Because the Modrons were not resistant, or, extra damage to lightning. So, yeah, he was like, do I cook the children? And there's the plot, I guess.
What do I do with a natural 1? Do I, because and I've said this before, so I'll keep it quick. It was essentially a small tracker. They'd basically been tagged in a zoo, and so it was okay, they're trying to get these out of them. Ronan had some but you start running this lightning magic through somebody. What do we do? What's a nat 1 on a religion check to like channel your god's divinity? And the answer was nothing, which is boring, or something, which is less boring. And as we kind of talked about last week, I play by Bethesda rules, which is like, don't, like, as a safety tool, kids are safe. As a rule, kids are safe. And I wasn't going to, like, taser the 2 small children in the room. So I was like, we're just going to push all of that into one player character and make it, like, that as a consequence of their failed roll. Which coincided with, yeah, we'll talk about the next part. I don't know if it's on the next slide because I haven't seen this yet. I shouldn't be streaming something I didn't proofread. What am I doing?
Because surprises. This is
There
really
are
just
surprises.
torture for you, where like Rachel is surprised every week. So
I know.
now, welcome.
I wrote this an hour ago, 2 hours ago, so it's still surprising to me. Yeah, so that's preseason. That's before most of us joined in and kicked off, and we found the plot. So all of that basically was like a big old like 4-session 0, I guess you could say.
Also love how, and this is compliments to Curtis. Just take them. The fact that like
I'm listening.
you have carried through a plot line for 3 years in a game that is character driven. So it's not like that you have like these benchmarks that they have to hit, that you have continually pulled this story along from point A.1 to wherever we're at in the bullet point list of things. So yeah. You can continue, Rachel. Next slide.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah, next slide. Now we're in season 1. Yay, season 1. Excellent. All right.
And that's it. We're just moving on through season 1 done. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, season 1. Okay, so the group travels from Lockpoint to a bigger city called Cormvor, which is where the rest of us jumped in. And so Curtis suddenly went from running a 3-person campaign to a 7-person campaign. You know, like the lunatic, that the relatively sane man he
Jumped
is.
that quick?
Oh yeah. We picked up Thrall and Maury, I believe, in Long Pike on the way through the Elderwood to Cormvor.
And then
Because
when
it was
they
like-
hit Cormvor, they picked up Thalia and Robbie.
Oh god. All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
It was like, hey, I've got a friend who runs a D&D game. You want in? And enough people said that, and all of a sudden they were like, yeah, I'm here to show up. And it was like, oh no.
Oh, everyone brought a +1. Oh no.
I don't have
oh.
enough food for these people. How do I make plot happen?
Yep.
Internet.
But
So
it was,
yes,
and it was also.
it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, okay. It was also really interesting because almost none of them, actually none of them, until we picked up Mike as Robbie, none of them had played a role-playing game before. Everyone had heard about D&D and thought it was really cool. So I just, my new player count just ballooned out, and I'm like, oh god. All right, here's how this
Also-
works.
When we added everyone, we had not played in person at all. I did not know. The only person I knew was Chris, who had invited me. The rest of them kind of knew each other from like other things they've done, but like I did not know any of them besides Chris. So there's a lot of we don't know what's going on and we don't know each other, but here we are playing D&D. Yeah, so a large party suddenly, but I brought some knowledge. Actually jumped in as a level 5 when everyone was still level 4, so I was slightly ahead of the game on purpose. And Robbie kind of furthered the plot because I think you told Mike about your ideas for the plot, and he went, "I want in."
Pretty
so he was kind of a helpful little plot tool every now and then, pushing that Modron plot, and he knew about the metal virus, and he had memories of a war that no one else remembered. Awkward. That'll come back every now and then. We decided to keep investigating what's going on with this metal virus. Since Core ended up with that metal virus, he turned to a full-on statue, and then we left him and never saw him again. So
He actually,
his player character was no longer available. So
yeah, so it was one of those where like scheduling didn't work out, and I was like, okay, can I use your character as a plot engine, or do you want me to leave him in stasis for you to come back? And didn't really get a hard answer on that, so it was one of those where it was like, okay, and that
so I'll just put that there.
People were chasing Core, this metallicized statue, and that's how you found Robbie, was chasing him like down under and into the sewers. Yes. And you found Robbie and basically pulled him out
Robbie
of his
was not in the sewers.
He was above the sewers, wasn't he?
Correct. He was in the mayor's mansion in a secret hidden compartment that was triggered by different bricks being played by like
spooky basement.
DDR.
Rachel, how is your brain?
It's great.
It's like these are like moments where I'm just like listening to you off the top of your head pull these things, where I do the same thing at work, where I'm just like, oh yeah, it's like this thing happened at that person, they wore a yellow shirt that day. It's like, love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm also afraid because this is a totally fictional universe I've made up, and it's occupying way too much space in somebody else's head.
I probably should have like put this disclaimer to the audience, is that really this is more for Curtis today than it is.
Curtis is like, yes. Okay.
It's like, oh yeah, that did
don't
happen.
worry. There's some notes for Curtis here. Yeah, so we on our search for more information, like every good party does in the info search part of the campaign, we find out there's a city under the city. There's the city of Durganfor under the city of Coramfor, and there used to be sister cities, and then a red dragon attacked Durganfor underneath, and it was like, this is mine now, and they trapped the dragon inside so it wouldn't take Coramfor. So we find out about the city, and if I remember right, we were kind of torn between, should we take care of the red dragon or keep hunting down this metal thing? And we didn't really have an answer, so we just went back to Long Pike, looking for both answers. And next slide. Yeah, so still in season 1. We go back to where they found Ronan in that like hidden place, which is actually called the Menagerie. Yes, and which was like a Noah's Ark of like, okay, the Primus was like, what if existence got wiped out? What if there's an apocalypse? What are we gonna do? Let's make a Noah's Ark, because balance, because that's the Primus, as we have learned in 3 years of this campaign. Balance and order.
I'm gonna put a pause in the continuing on the story, and would like both of you to explain the Primus, because that has been an overarching kind of like deity.
Not deity is the correct term. Rachel, do you want to do an explanation and I will fill in the blanks, or do you want me to take point on this one?
Go for it, boss, because
okay, that's fair. So looping this, sort of tying this into the Modron problem thing.
Yeah.
The Primus is the deity of order, the deity of absolute perfect systemic order. He hangs out on the plane of Mechanus, and he basically sits in he's just a metal god that sits in a pool, a white pool, and from that pool every Modron is born. There is the Primus, and then the two Secundus. I think it's Latin on the way down, Greek on the way up, is how you kind of remember these things, like how they break down, because it breaks down from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from the Primus down to the 10 sort of legions it runs, and then those trickle out from Decadrone, Nonodrone, Octodrone, Septadrone, and continue just becoming exponentially deeper. So the Primus is connected to every Modron at all times and is the highest thought process in Mechanus. His will is to have everything click and work as a machine should. So
quick definition for people who are new to this. What essentially is a Modron?
A Modron is in traditional D&D lore, a Modron is essentially a tiny metal eyeball with arms and legs, and occasionally wings that serves a higher power. It is essentially a drone unit that receives instruction and goes and does the thing. The March of the Machines is the Primus in the original 3.5 module. The Primus sends every Modron they have out, and they do an entire circuit of every single one of the planes of reality, and billions of them fly out, leave the place, and like 10 make it back. But
Okay.
they are tiny little
They're kind of
eyeball
like,
creatures.
think about like if you've seen Spirited Away, like soot sprites,
Oh,
the little
okay.
little
Got it.
little guys, but they're like mechanical and they answer to somebody, but you're like all coordinated. So
Okay.
like,
Yeah,
little
and
cute little guys.
All right.
and as being
We'll
pointed
get
out,
more into that as we go on, though.
as is being pointed out, they only communicate. So like a Modron will answer to a Duodrone. A Duodrone gives out the commands to Monodrones, and then a Tridrone gives out commands to any Duodrones it has under its thrall. So it's like, imagine a pyramid scheme, effectively.
That's literally what I was just about to say.
of instruction. And like there are individual like smaller ones, but the Primus runs the show.
Okay.
And any one of his commands will eventually trickle down to a Modron unless they have been cut off from the Primus as a whole, which has happened.
Gotcha. Continue, Rachel.
Where was I? Yeah, so Robbie, speaking of connections with the Primus, Robbie's like, I think I'm connected to the Primus. I have a mission. Also connected to the secret missing war that no one talks about, called the Underdark War. Coming soon on another slide. So eventually, a lot of talking later, we decided to just go take down the dragon because that's a lot easier for our small brains to handle other than this giant deity of order and chaos. And we're like, you know what? We'll just put that there later. That'll be there later. Why don't we go kill a dragon? That seems like the cool D&D thing to do because we're all new to D&D, and why not? Also, we finally get the point where we become the committee. We had been talking to this elf named Ergen, this wise old elf Ergen, who was helping us as we checked in, kind of checking in with us, and he went to go help us with something and died in a fiery explosion. And that was the first big ally death, and we all maybe cried a little bit on stream. And Curtis wrote us letters from Ergen to each of our characters, and we all cried about that. And part of that was he talked about he revealed that he remembered the Underdark War, this hidden war that no one remembered. Ergen revealed that he did remember it, and he was part of this group called the Ashe. His division was called the Ashe and Shade, ASHEN space Shade. So in order to honor him, we decided to take up the moniker and become the Ashe and Shade Committee. And why committee? Why not? Because we had so many of us. Things had to be decided by committee.
It was decided by committee. It was
So-
really like.
So that was kind of our big bonding moment of, we're the Ashe and Shade Committee. We picked and we actually like solidified a name and to honor Ergen's memory and everything like that.
Oh, this makes like moments that happened just recently so much more like. It's like, Curtis, why do you do this to your players?
So for those of you who have watched recently, the place where Ronan and Lami went to interrogate the individual, like there's basically an altar full of order and radioactive like peace and calmness. That is
the
the
Primus.
That is the site of that explosion.
Where Ergen died.
Is where
Yeah.
like that is where Ergen died, because you guys split off to investigate two different things, and Ergen's plan just blew up, literally.
Now it's a 5-star diner.
Okay.
It is.
It is a convention center.
Playing.
Your convention center.
That's worse.
Don't lie to me. It's what it is.
It's a diplomat suite. It's.
Would you prefer a 5-star diner?
I would take a diplomat suite with hors d'oeuvres.
All right.
That's nice, Curtis.
I did actually, I did a little bit of prep for this. I found all of those letters and read through them.
I haven't
they
read
still
mine
get
in a
me.
while.
They
But
still get me.
you know, it's about time for Thalia to reread hers. Honestly, she's a little sad. It's time to go read the sad letter.
Oh, it's also sad because I'm reading them for half of the characters that are no longer with the party, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, look at that plot thread I won't use.
Oh, there it goes. No, it's so sad.
Yeah. Anyway, next
All
slide.
right.
The party eventually solves the riddle to open the door to Durgan 4. Absolutely did not just use the knock spell to unlock the door.
That is the best spell for anybody to have.
Who would do such a thing like that?
I don't know. Definitely none of the law-abiding, friendly spellcasters we have in the
In
party.
a party of mostly martial combatants, who could do such a thing?
Someone who doesn't multi-class, I bet.
Oops, knock.
Thalia just always forgets her keys.
I used it and I saw the light just die in Curtis'
I was
eyes
like,
a little bit.
fuck, what happens with knock? Oh, it undoes magical locks.
We figured out the first 2 locks, because there were 3 locks. We figured out the first 2, and then we couldn't get the third, and I was just like, what if I just knock? And the door opened.
That's the DM, the piece of DMing that is just kill your darlings. Like, I was like, here's this wonderful 3-lock door, like it's a riddle that's designed to keep
making fun of.
Yes, but that's okay because that meant that you couldn't solve it, and I was okay with that because you were busy thinking of jokes. Also, the D&D trope of the door being the hardest thing in the world to beat.
It was.
And then it was like, well, we got 2 of these, and Thalia's just like, knock, and I'm like, sure, it opens. All right, that's fine. That's the most anticlimactic thing ever. But now the door's open. I hope you're ready.
Yep. Yeah, it was great. Well, we go into the city. We kind of see the ancient red dragon off in the distance, and we find the king, Ragarin. Oh my gosh, I couldn't think of that name 2 hours ago. Ragarin, King Ragarin. I gotta edit that right now. Ragarin. There. And he was cursed to, like, and this dude's probably, like, been around for way longer than he should have. So he reveals he's been cursed by the dragon to live in servitude while the rest of the city had escaped, and he stayed behind as kind of like a sacrifice. And so Robbie's like, I can remove curse, and so he did, and then the king just died. So by logic, Robbie killed the king, so Robbie is now the king.
Small point of order. Ragarin was king when Firanax was baited underground and they evacuated Corumvor. Ragarin left with his people and they sealed the door behind them with 3 locks that no dragon would be able to unlock without defying who they were as a dragon. Ragarin snuck back in.
Oh, that's right.
With a team of adventurers to kill Firanax himself. Firanax killed all of his friends and linked his life. Firanax linked his life force to Ragarin to keep him alive. With no food, no water, no sunlight. He is a trophy. The ultimate trophy is the king of the kingdom that you now rule. And he just makes armor for the dragon, doing cool armor things. So yes, removing the curse broke the hold that Firanax had on Ragarin, and about a couple 100 years of starvation set in and killed the king.
Oops.
So that's why Robbie is king.
Yeah, Robbie is king now. There we go. As promised, 5 slides later.
I always wondered how that happened.
It was a very unfortunate remove curse, trying to be helpful.
It was... I loved Robbie because of how literal he was at all times.
Robbie's logic was like, I killed the king, I'm therefore king. That was just the logic that immediately happened. And we're like, no one's here to argue about it.
No, it's not no one's here to argue. It's that Chris and Josh were like, yes. Yes, that's how this works. And he went, okay, my friends have told me that I am king now.
So I am king. Yep, that's how that worked.
Because at this point, Robbie was essentially like a 3-year-old?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, like he was a toddler.
Yeah, because he had no memories.
Yeah.
For
Built for war, was awake. I think he might have been 5.
Okay.
He was 5 because he had a
Something like
couple
that.
of years of serving in the war and a couple of
Oh,
years
yeah.
outside of that. But essentially a kindergartner
Became king.
logic became king.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And your friends say that something happens, so therefore something happens.
Correct.
Yeah, my dad works at Nintendo, and I know all these things. Like, I remember being a kindergartner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dark time.
Yeah, that was good. And then we finally saw the dragon. We're like, yeah, we're gonna do the thing, and the dragon started monologuing, and we're like, Curtis, no, rule number 1, you monologued, and Robbie took advantage of that and was like, I'm gonna just drop a summon, greater demon. No, wait,
Lesser demon.
summon lesser demon. Just dropped that right on top of Furinax's head. We grounded it immediately, and then the rest of the tanks took over, and we just like killed it very quickly to Curtis's dismay.
Yeah.
Uh,
I can only imagine the stories that have gotten out of like, as like the committee continues, of just like the great defeat of Furinax.
We literally
And-
caught him monologuing.
Yeah. And what stories have been told from like other NPCs or guest
That's a question
PCs.
Thalia has absolutely wondered about, and has not actually published her own version
kind
for
of
the sole
speaking
purpose
to
of
that.
doing that.
Speaking on that, Mark, this is actually where Kor met his end.
Oh, that's right.
Because there were enormous dwarven statues in the hall that Kor essentially assimilated with, and was he was driving one of them, but they were defensive mechanisms.
Full on like Pacific Rim.
Like, yeah, Jaegers. I threw some Jaegers into the fight, and I think Lamy crit on, like, he hit this thing in the ankle and tried to knock it over, or like moved it 10 feet and knocked it over. Like, this 50-foot tall statue. He's like, no, go over there.
On the ground. Lie down. Nap time.
But yes, so that was the end of Kor. That was the end of Furinax. And yeah, there have been stories of there are stories of the individuals kind of eking out. Lythar, earlier in this season, as they were adventuring around the menagerie, that y'all killed a juvenile rock that had been slowly metamorphing into a metallic entity. And Lythar, I think that was Lythar's first kill.
Yes.
Was on that because again,
And
Cora
Cora
gets
had
all
all
the
the
good
other
kills.
kills.
Cora was a death
Cora
machine, and I
got
couldn't
all of
stop her.
Yeah.
But
You wouldn't stop her.
I couldn't if I tried. But also, yes, I wouldn't, because she is the best girl. There's a command for it and everything. So Lythar became known as the Steel Slayer to certain individuals, especially some of the sentient trees and some of the things that knew of his deeds. People started to know of him because of his deeds and actions, and sort of the word is trickling out about these adventurers doing these heroic deeds. So yeah, that's there. The word does spread, and that was really like, that was the end of season 1. That was sort of the turning point of like, hi, y'all are significant now.
We killed the dragon, and then also we split up after we killed the dragon. We're like, great, we killed the dragon. Everyone's gonna go do their own thing now for 3 months. And the party totally broke up, actually. Ronan went north. Thrall went...
I think Thrall and Lamia both went... Or no, Thrall and Ronan went north. To
Yeah,
check out what
Lamy
was going on in
went...
in Ronan's hometown.
Lamy went... west? No.
Lamy went
East.
East to Kondo.
East to Kondo. Maury went home to Spring Socket, which is to the south? We haven't been to Spring Socket yet, so we don't know where that is.
I believe that. I believe that's further south.
So that's south. And that's where we said goodbye to Maury semi-permanently. And kind of the same with Thrall. Thrall kind of went off on his own journey, and Maury... It was a good place. The end of season 1 was a good place when everyone kind of split up, because we were kind of upset at each other on how the final battle went down. So we all just kind of walked away from each other. And Robbie stayed to become king. Thalia stayed to help Robbie get the city back up and witness the city come back to life, which was fascinating to her. And everyone else just kind of split up, and it was a great time for people to park characters and try out new people. So that's where we get Firo coming in season 2. And yeah, actually the party was like, nice job, bye, forever.
We need some
Immediately
space.
after killing the dragon, we all broke off. Like, immediately after killing the dragon. There's no celebration, there's no nothing. We just broke off. It was really wild. It was a really wild emotional session. We all just kind of sat back in our chairs after that session. We're like, oh, that just happened.
Yeah.
It was our first big fight with each other. So that was pretty wild. Next slide.
Next slide.
Erica, pop quiz.
Huh?
Next slide. Pop quiz. The Underdark War is A war between the Underdark and the above world civilizations. B, not written in any history books. C, fought by an army of semi-sentient warforged. D, all of the above.
All of the above.
Correct. There you go. I realized I didn't write anything about the Underdark War and didn't explain it in my notes, so here it is. That's the explanation. All of the above there. 2, how can we earn inspiration during our games? What? A, slipping in Star Wars references. B, making fun of Curtis's names for things. C, making Curtis laugh. D, whenever Curtis says salami, we have to say it, mouth it back to him, and do the Kodai hand signs.
Oh no! No, I think just making Curtis laugh actually is the only reason why.
That is. He threatens to take away inspiration for any of the other things.
The Star Wars references, I just kind of like side-eye the camera like I'm on The Office now, because that just encourages things when I say to take things away. The Solami is mostly me just like, I gotta start that sentence different, or I gotta kill Lami. Those are my only two solutions.
Correct.
I also love every single time that you do that, you say, like, you like swear to
Shit.
yourself, like you catch it every time.
It's too late. It's already out of my mouth. There's no bringing that back.
Very true.
Yep. So, good job, Erica. You passed the pop quiz.
Yay. Yeah, y'all didn't know there was going to be a test on this,
Chat.
did you?
Hope y'all. Oh, Callus got it.
Please pass your papers to the front of the class.
Exelis got it. Nice. I'm seeing some response in chat. Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't feel like writing more buried walls of text, so I hope we go. All right. That's season 1. Yay! That was at that point also we did all of season 1 without playing in person. At this point we have not played in person yet. It was all online. So yeah, we killed a dragon online with 7 people like trying to make Discord work.
So I guess
no
this is also the
battle
question of like, were we as a 5% chance on Twitch yet with season 2? With season 1?
No, season 1 was all just recorded and like, oh, maybe we'll put this up on YouTube. At the time, I had a potato for a computer, so my camera was not working for most of it. I think the Fear and Axe battle was actually one of the first times I had a camera on that like was smooth, and I had it up the whole time, and I could see everyone's reactions the whole time, because before I had everyone's cameras off. I had Discord minimized, trying to just keep things running, my voice running, and so I didn't see anyone for a solid 3 months of playing. It was all just by audio for myself, and they couldn't see me. It was all audio, which was wild. Now that I like play with a much better setup and more stable, I'm like, whoa, this is how did I do that? That was wild. Yeah. So that's season 1. Are we ready for season 2? Much shorter
questions before we dive in.
All
right.
I think we're ready for season 2. This was because I think a lot of season 1 we're now referencing in season 3.
A lot of season 1 is starting to come back.
Yeah.
A lot of season 1 is actually starting to come back, which is pretty crazy, and it's stuff that we always forget, and it has me throwing down my current notebook and picking up my season 1 notebook and like flipping through pages frantically, trying to find things.
Yeah.
What
is your favorite season 1 moment?
Ooh. Favorite season 1 moment. Looking back on it, and I was really terrified and forgot about it until we're talking about it tonight, that end resolution of season 1 where we weren't okay with each other, because we were a bunch of adventurers that had no super great reason to be working together, I mean, we united after Ergen's death in the way that like the Avengers united after Coulson's death in
Spoilers.
Avengers.
Shh.
Um, so like we united in that sense, but after killing Fearnax, there was like so much infighting, and like I genuinely didn't know where we were gonna go to next. I didn't know who would be coming back for season 2. I didn't know who would end up being killed by each other. Like I genuinely thought somebody was gonna be killed, like player versus player combat. It got very close, and I just remember like, wow, this is what D&D can be like. This is crazy. And it was a pretty intense moment. I can't believe I forgot about it until now, but it was very intense. We had a lot of really funny moments in campaign 1, but that was one of the ones that definitely was like, whoa, this is what could happen. I don't know, Curtis?
My favorite part about season 1. What do you think it's gonna be? Hold on, because I don't think
the assassin fight.
As a combat session, I loved it. That's not my favorite moment though.
Okay.
Like, yeah, as the session for that. For me, it's a slightly broader picture, but it's watching again a group of brand new players find out what this game can do, what RPGs as a whole can do. Was there a lot of PvP in that season? Yes. Oh god, yes.
That was the start of some really heavy PvP.
Like, there was always like a little bit of joshing back and forth and like playing around with that, but watching people really come to terms with what the game can and can't do and what they want it to be, and by extension, tooting my own horn here, the letters from Ergen were my favorite thing, because it was, hey, what advice would someone who has seen some really serious shit, what would he tell in a letter that he knows he will never get to give? Because there was a whole box of letters that were meant for his friend Mayor Alvaron, and you guys all had ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it was the moment where I was like, I like playing digitally. I wish I was playing in person so I could have handed those out on paper.
Yeah.
And just handed them around the table and let everyone just sit in that quiet and read their own letters. Would have been so juicy. And it's a little bit of like,
cried.
oh, that's the goal.
Stop.
The goal is emotions. But like, the biggest thing was like getting those moments and getting people so invested that they are gonna fight because of how they feel, and they're not like, oh, it's a game, it's whatever. Like, they are invested in themselves and in how this is going. And like, again, watching that from brand new players is something that I will never ever get tired of. And when I play with people who have played before, there's this accepted sort of cadence. There's a way things kind of work. New players absolutely surprise the snot out of you. Like with Thrall and Dancer, the Oni that lives in his sword. I was like, cool, you have a cursed sword. There's a demon inside. And he's like, cool, I want to talk to it. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I want to talk to it. Okay.
I want to become friends.
I want to become friends. Cool. So now my samurai can cast darkness that he can see through. Just as a trick. He can move through darkness. He can just murder people. And I was like, great, this is the dude we're making. And he's in this like weird Venom Eddie Brock symbiotic relationship with an Oni. And I was like, great, congratulations, you now have spells as a samurai. Let's go. Let's see what happens. And like, just watching the growth and watching that creativity from people who don't know what isn't. It was a reminder for me that there are no rules except what everyone agrees on. And if you have a cool idea and we can make it work, let's do the cool idea. Which has really pushed the entire campaign to where it is. Also, no, I see you, chat. This is not a dressing gown. This is a lovely sweater because it was cold as dicks today in Virginia and I hated it.
Yeah, we're back to like wintertime temperatures. I don't like it. We had like a week of like 80 degrees. Perfect. And now we're back.
Yeah. But no, again, as I like reading through these notes, And yes, you are correct. Things are starting to trickle back up from season 1 because a lot of plot points, a lot of things that were investigated enough to understand that they're there, they kept happening while you guys were gone. Things have occurred. So now the problem's different. But you can trace the roots back to the first time you interacted with them. It might have not been when it started.
The consequences of our past actions. How lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on to season 2.
Yeah.
I was about to say, speaking of consequences, season 2.
Season 2.
Hit it, Curtis. What happened? Oh, I'm really sad I put clip art in these now. There's clip art. Like, really bad clip art.
It's amazing what you could do with an hour of time.
Correct. This was actually the 5 minutes before the stream. The clip art. Anyway, season 2. What happened? We reunited after three months. Most of us did. We lost Mori, but then we picked up Firo. And Ronan comes back from the north, having been like beaten within an inch of his life, trying to avenge his hometown. Didn't go well, so he came back saying, "Hey, can I have some help avenging my hometown?" We said, "Sure, why not?" We picked up Firo, who was just like he had a connection with Mori, is how that backstory started, and Mori sent him to us as maybe adventurers who could help him find answers, because he also was an amnesiac warforged like Robbie. So we head out. We head towards east to Terraborn, which was my neck of the woods for backstory. We maybe have some issues with the local crime boss and get banned unofficially from the city, but banned from the city. So that went well.
Okay, so this is where I have a question.
Yes.
Multiple questions, actually. First off,
Yes.
can you divulge what happened in your 3 months that you're away?
So I stayed back. I stayed at home. I stayed in Cornvor, Durganvor. I helped Robbie get Durganvor up and running. So I'm like, all of the committee is technically on the Durganvor ruling council. It's you know, because Robbie's a 5-year-old and all he's ever seen from a governance is the committee. There's council, and technically all of us are on it, but I guess, Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong, I have a little bit more power because I did stay behind to help influence
Because you did the
things.
work. You showed up. You showed up to meetings, therefore you have a little more sway.
Yeah.
You are all essentially like Robbie's council, and you can speak as a member of the council with Robbie's blessing. Like Robbie, whatever you say is essentially given with Robbie's blessing as king.
Yeah. So I stayed back to help with that, and also helping with the Brotherhood of Books, which is my actual first job that I still work. And I get hazard pay. I just found out I get hazard pay for all my work with the Brotherhood. It's great, because I wander around as an adventurer and take notes of political happenings and social happenings, everything like that. So they count that as my job, and now I get extra pay. It's great. My bank accounts are looking amazing right now. Still not enough, I don't think, to buy a house, but we're working on that. Actually, why
In
do you
this
need a house? I live in the
economy, you could.
palace.
Yeah, you have
I
a
live in the
room in the
palace.
keep.
Oops. And a room in the Brotherhood. So
Yeah.
that's what I did over the 3 months, is I just helped things get up and running, took notes, compared notes, wrote notes, published notes.
And you gained a lot of knowledge around the Primus, if I'm not correct. And kind of how Robbie works and things like that.
Yeah.
I bring that up just because I feel like that's an important note to mention moving forward of season 2.
Starting to. I, as Rachel, struggle with the Primus still.
Yeah.
I, as Thalia, apparently know a lot about it. Which is very hard to RP.
Yeah.
Especially without Mike here, who had the whole game book in his head with the Primus thing. And now I'm like, oops, I should know this, but my reference isn't here anymore. Oops. Yeah, so that's what I did for 3 months. You said you had many questions, so...
Season 2 is where we meet the first car? The first.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We hop in the first van.
The first van.
We pile into the hippie van and travel.
Correct.
Because that's actually how y'all made it over to Terraborn.
Yes.
Yes.
After a very important series of interactions.
Notice
Oh,
who
what
didn't
was
make
it?
my slides, Curtis. Notice who didn't make my slides, Curtis.
Delmora, the Drifter Queen? Lady
No.
Delmora?
I mean, I should have, but
Yeah.
yeah. So while King Robbie is away, the original ruler, or if you follow the line of regency from King Ragarin, you would find Demura, the Drifter Queen, a dwarven powerhouse of a woman, and she becomes acting regent when they kind of like share duties a little bit when they're both in town, but she becomes acting regent when King Robbie is away on adventures. So that, I guess, is a Curtis again with his socio-political happenings, needing to know how a government works for a city. That's really what happened in 3 months. Is myself and Curtis and Mike sat down for 3 hours one night and talked about government.
Who runs this city while things are
names, and
Yes.
came up with structures and new things and projects for the city and the policing of the
Hey,
city.
you guys have 3 months, and Robbie had sort of connected himself with a large pile of Modrons, and so there was
Oh yeah,
that is
because
the
those were
Modron.
also hanging out down there.
He is connected with a Modron influence and is now kind of running. Durganvor has its own sort of Modron
Yeah.
supply.
Robbie is
Robbie.
referred to as the speaker of the Primus, so we still don't know how that is a thing, but it's a thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
season 2, we make it to Terraborn. We get kicked out of Terraborn after saying hi to my dad, and then we get on a boat, and there's the murder mystery, and there's an automaton revolution and awakening into sentient beings, but we don't talk about the boat. We spent a good 4 months real time on the boat, like 4 months of playing real time on the boat, and all of us, I think, legitimately would have jumped off a boat at the point we were done with the boat. So we don't talk about the boat. Curtis, next slide. Por favor.
Mhm.
Season 2, we don't know what happened. After Redacted.
After the disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike decided to swap out his character because he was tired of the Warforged King Robbie and kind of following that logical path all the time, which it has to be pretty exhausting, honestly, I will say, to RP. We found Patrick, the human grumpy cleric, who decides that we all need some grumpy old man wisdom in our lives, and tags along with us. So we continue on our journey north. We ally with the Marigolds. They have a real group name. We don't care. Erica guest played as one of the leaders of the Marigolds. We just renamed her entire organization and cared not for any work she had done before game.
The funny thing is, though, is that I think you helped her rebrand. Because her husband went away to hide in the Feywilds, and she kind of wasn't okay with what he was doing all of the time. So he comes back and she's like, "No, this is our new organization. We're no longer the Shadow Walkers. We are now
The
the Marigold Society.
And we run resistance rebellion.
And by the way, we're not dealing in this anymore. We're actually helping people escape the city and get to better places and where they're from." It's like, but don't you worry, we're still working on all of these other things.
Yeah, can't wait to run into that problem for us later. It's okay. We were once allies, kind of, loosely. So on our way to Eastoff, we battle on a mountain, which led us to believe, we realized after 2.5 years of playing. By the way, we have played live game at this point. We have played together at the table once, somewhere in between season 1 and 2.
We're about to hit our second one. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
At the end of we end season 2 with a live game again. No. No.
We started season 1 live, or season 2 live.
No.
No,
We're
it's
in the middle
mid,
of season 2 live.
because I guest starred. You went into live game, and then I came back.
I'm trying to remember the first time.
We were in the middle of season 2 because the first one was with the raptors and the
yeah, the zombie raptors. That's right. I remember them.
We were in the middle of season 2.
It was the fungi people.
Yeah. Yeah, we were in the middle of season 2. This little guy right here.
Yeah, not a mold.
Yeah, this little guy right there. So that was the middle of season 2. Was our first live game.
I'm so glad you
Anyway,
got that.
we
by the way.
realized
I didn't know what happened to that.
Of course, it lives right here. It lives on my setup. Anyway, so after like 2 years of playing, we were like, actually, maybe we need maps. After the battle with Red on the mountaintop, we were like, maybe we need maps. This theater of the mind thing sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we
wait, was that the first map? Was the
after the avalanche mountain?
Was the longbow fight? The longbow conversation.
Yeah, that's how longbows came in.
Yes.
Longbow conversation was the point of we need a map. That was the first time we ever were like, we need a map.
Actually, incorrect. That was the first time we had a digital map on Roll20.
Correct. Yeah. We had in-person map.
I had in-person map, and I had basically a second camera set up pointing down at my desk.
Yeah, with a little
with my on-paper battle map and poker chips for the players and different things. I did do some of that, but that was before I switched over to a full VTT.
Yeah.
Which
anyway,
is why everyone remembers the assassin fight.
Yeah. Anyway, this avalanche fight. We battle Red, who has ties to the Underdark War. Surprise, it's still coming back. And also the Primus. Surprise, it's still coming back. By the way, we also killed Red once in season 1. Like, actually killed him while we were mucking around in Durganvor, trying to get there. So we killed him once, and suddenly he's back with the Avalanche. And he's still around in season 4.
So here's the question that I have going back to Modrons. Was this the first time with that battle with Red that Thalia knew about the Modron? Because Alexi, after we killed Red, saw that little skittling Modron escape into the wall.
No. We did know about Modrons the first time we did know about Modrons the first time that we ran into Red. Because he was in the presence of several Modrons that seemed to be listening to him.
Gotcha.
In particular, if I remember correctly, and we can consult the VODs and call me a dirty liar on the internet, there was a red-eyed Modron that looked at all of y'all and went, greetings and salutations, before scuttling off.
That does sound correct.
Yeah.
It does sound correct. Yep. So, yeah, that's season 2. Season 2 is kind of wild. We don't know what's happening, but we're going north. That's our only actual plot direction, is we're going north.
We're going north to save Ronan's family.
And there's a boat involved that we don't talk about anymore. If you could, Curtis, please, to the next slide.
Water choo-choo Curtis smiley face?
Yes. That's just for you, Curtis.
Yeah.
Love you.
I would like to also add...
Choo-choo.
I would also like to add, it is at this point, Ronan, there was a spooky one-shot that got you guys Adelaide for the Halloween special.
That was back at the beginning of season 2.
Correct. That was,
right when people first coming back to town.
But yes, that's where we did a spooky one-shot in a pocket dimension, and then came out, and that's how Adelaide joined the party as a tiny friend.
I forgot that Adelaide's been around that long.
Adelaide was the beginning of season 2 as a Halloween special.
Yeah. So now I have more questions, because now my brain is going about season 2 of things that we didn't talk about. What is that pearl that you gave to the Brotherhood?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a beach episode in Terraborn, because Terraborn's on the west coast. And we had a beach episode, and while we were diving very deep into some Underdark ruins, we found this pearl, which became actually an Aboleth connection. And everyone really hated that, except for Thalia, who was like, hi, you have information of decades? I would really like to hear that. And the rest of the party... The rest of the party took personal offense to that, I guess, and would not let me interact with it, and tried everything they could to prevent me from interacting with it, and I still found a way anyway.
I very distinctly remember watching episodes of Do Not Let Thalia touch this.
Correct.
Thalia is not allowed to touch this. No one really should touch this, but especially Thalia.
They all thought I was gonna go evil or something like that. And I was like, y'all, I just want to know you are withholding lore from the lore bard.
I could not have
Sons of
placed a
guns.
better trap in front of Thalia as a DM.
Welcome back to infighting the
Yeah.
campaign. That was one of them.
So, as a brief sort of summary of that particular combat encounter, aboleths turn their water environment into gross, mucousy, oozy slime. There was a Triton named Anemone who was flirting with Lythar and was like, "Hey, there's this cool adventure thing," and he was like, "Yeah, let's go," and brought the gang. And inside, there were drow bodies, which was, I believe, the first time you guys encountered drow.
Yes.
Dark elves. Underground, just their bodies with a priestess sort of near the top, as well as a demon summon that had to be resolved. But basically, like, this little drow outpost tucked away and nestled into the coast, with this pearl that allows communication with an aboleth, a creature of the elemental plane of water that has a perfect memory and, oh boy, a vengeance streak a mile wide. So yeah, that's Azora.
Yeah.
She's currently in storage.
Because they made me. They also didn't trust that the Brotherhood would like treat an artifact, and the Brotherhood deals in artifacts and like magical items and history like that. And they're like, no, the Brotherhood's gonna turn evil. And I was like, all right, drama queens that I apparently have in my party. Like, they wouldn't let me go with them. I had to like stay out of the room. They were so mean, except for, and then that's where I picked up the spell that I could contact other planes and communicate with creatures on other planes, so I can talk to the apple whenever I want now. So
This is
props on them.
also at the moment where Rachel is carrying a very magical dagger that she had taken from Lami because she found out what it can do.
Okay, I feel like we need to go back to that story
Yes.
real
That's
quick.
in between season 1 and 2. So season 1 and 2, season 1 we got some magical items that we never
Yeah.
actually paid attention to. One of which I found out more about in my 3 months of research is this dagger called the Threadripper. And if you kill someone with it, like an innocent bystander, you get a wish. A literal wish, like full-on 9th level wish spell. Just get one. And yeah, it's cursed, so it's like, hey, you should probably kill someone. You should kill someone with me. And so I was like, that's probably a bad idea to leave with the impulsive Lami. So right at the top of season 2, I low-key tricked Lami into giving up his dagger and changed the curse over to me. And Robbie's been holding out to it in a pocket dimension, so I don't feel any effects of the curse at all. We just have it
That and your
without the
angelic background
impulsiveness
does help.
of Lami. Just being like, yeah, why not kill just a random person for a wish? That sounds like a pretty good deal. At the time when Lobby was playing, when Josh was playing that side of Lami, it was very impulsive. So I was like, that seems like a bad idea. He had no idea what the dagger's power was. He just thought it was some rusty dagger. He just thought it was pretty. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, to chat, yes, I basically come up with workarounds for anything the party doesn't let me do.
The party, the DM, the monsters, whatever. Whatever goes her way.
Correct.
Welcome to How to Play a Lore Bard with Rachel.
You had nice
She's
things.
my beautiful baby bard is beautiful, and I love her.
So damaged.
Yes, thanks, Curtis.
I'm just saying.
I gave you 2 live parents, okay?
That's true. You have one live parent and one like angelic parent. True, but also you do have parental figures that are alive, unlike Chris.
Unlike most of the party. Yep. So
We are at 8:30 and we still have one more season to go. Do we want to take a 10 to use the bathroom? I am saying this personally.
Great. Erica would like to take a 10. Understood.
I would like to take 10. Curtis and I can.
I would like to take a 10, please. Erica,
right.
do you please,
I would
please let
like-
us take a 10? I must.
I'm like, I am the host. I'm asking kindly, but really, I need to go to the bathroom. So yeah, so everybody, we'll be back in 10 to go into the final season of the Ash and Shade. Final season so far. Let me put
Kind
that
of.
way.
Well,
Yeah,
if you
kind of.
count, season 3 is kind of like a mini season, and now we're in
Yeah.
season 4 technically.
We're so close.
Making
But
progress.
yes, so
Anyway, we'll be back.
yeah, we'll be back in 10.
Bye.
Bye. And we're back.
Hello.
We are back with desserts and refilled coffee. I prepared yesterday and actually like made a cold brew pitcher, which I know it's 8:30, but yeah, I'm drinking it now. What of it?
I resemble that remark, and it's great. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
There's a couple things better. Anyway,
Sit here and sip my water.
listen, you're the responsible adult.
I have water too.
I
But yeah,
also have
so
water
we're
in my 5% chance branded water bottle, because when you have stickers, anything can be 5% merch. That's the secret.
yes. We'll do a plug for those later with all of the things I currently have around.
Xylus was already running the plugs in the chat. Chief Mod doing Chief Mod things.
Yeah. I think Callus called me out for the number of things that I have been drinking out of that have percent chance logo on it. But I digress. So, jumping into end of season 2, beginning of season 3, we start season 3 off hot with a lot of things. So,
Oh God, I've gone too far. Hold please. Hold please. Oh God. Oh God.
choo choo.
I see the clip.
Hey,
on
we're
it.
back.
Made it.
Hey, we're back. Everything's fine. We're back. I definitely didn't click
Went
too
back
far
too
ahead.
far.
It's fine. I'm gonna wait for Rachel's go because I did not listen to my stage
Go
manager.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, now I can go. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So, jumping back in. Set the scene, Rachel, because at this
So-
point in time, I don't trust Curtis.
We were just talking about this. So I have marked season 2 as the first leg of travel,
Mm-hmm.
where it's mostly travel and like all the small things that we encounter on the way, like the aboleth, like stopping in Terraborn, like the whole boat thing. It's all like the small adventures we have along the way to Eastov, which is where Bronan's from and wants to avenge. Oh well, he doesn't want to. He wants to avenge some his hometown of.
I think stuff. Oh no.
Kinsvik.
Kinsvik was burned to the
Yes.
ground. Yes.
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 And so Eastov is the next neighboring town.
So, have we introduced the big baddie yet? Because we met them at the end of season. We met their lieutenants at the end of season 2, and took out one of the lieutenants.
Yeah, that's kind of like the spot where I'm like, that's kind of the start of season 3, end of season 2. It's that weird middle ground. So I kind of have that in that spot where we go to, what's the name of town? Curtis.
Which one?
The one before Eastov. That is the inlet. It's on the map. It's right at the top of the river as the crossing
right by the
point.
base of the waterfall.
Yes.
Valentel.
Valental, thank you. Valental.
Sorry,
It's
I was
also written in my
looking for-
backstory, but
I
I
was looking
conveniently
for my
forgot.
like 4th notebook because this is the point where I got off of a digital platform and things are in books in dumb places, so that's fine.
See, and that's why you just have notebooks.
Books.
And if you write digital notes, you copy them. Anyway, but yeah, when we're in Valentel and we kick off that first basically message to Keldar, the big bad in Eastov, from Ronan's backstory, the dictator there. Ronan one-shot kills one of the lieutenants by surprise, and basically one shot kills Curtis by surprise.
After, might I add, a phenomenal distraction from the rest of the team because y'all were smuggling out refugees.
Yeah.
And the bard, the bard, the robot, and the ranger, all put on a lovely distraction show. And then Ronan is like, great, we got the hostages out. That guy? No,
Dead.
He doesn't get to live anymore.
So, Ronan sent a message, and that's kind of the kickoff of season 3, as I call it.
What was which Star Trek villain? I mean character. I mean who what was that dude's name?
I'll let you keep working on that. It wasn't Icheb. Icheb was the other one. Alexander
Icheb
was the
rat
third
guy.
one. Yeah, Icheb was the rat guy. Alexander was the other one. There's a tiefling with
Because the
Green?
tiefling was the one who got the blue tiefling got murdered.
Ooh,
Yeah.
knew it was a cool color.
Oh, I
Anyway,
can't
keep
remember.
vamping. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, because
Anyway.
that was also kind of like the first introduction of the marigolds,
Mhm.
because that's where you met Sam, aka Alexi, in disguise. Because I'm gonna plug my own character. And also kind of like put that to Chris's amusement where all of the magical items in the world have gone. Because between the Brotherhood and Sam, between Alexi's organization, is like kind of like where they're all stored. Between the two.
Oops, all gone.
Oops, they were
you
requisitioned
can't
for a
find them?
magical war.
Yeah.
Also, and you guys are just finding random weapons caches hanging out.
But yeah, because it
That's
was
my next
the
bullet point.
the smuggling expedition that went off without a hitch. We didn't really like get any, and then the beautiful street show that was the
Oh, that was a great moment.
yeah.
I love that one.
Was it
Oh, that-
Ring of? There's like the beautiful like Ring of Fire that happened. Lythar turned into a cat and then into a human and then into a cat again.
Mhm.
Was doing some flamenco dancing that he learned from the
boat.
redacted
Redacted.
ship.
Yeah.
That was the time I pieced out by just falling back into a
Yes.
dimension door.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And a flash of sparks from Firo, all the pyrotechnics from Firo.
A lot of good
Yeah.
showmanship. And then Ronan. The gentleman's name was Damar. And
Damar.
Ronan.
Oh.
This was the beginning of where I realized that anything Ronan fights is going to not make it very far.
Yeah. Happened to break a magical item.
Yeah.
As he like,
Oops.
I remember that happening where I'm just like, that was very expensive.
Yeah, it was
In
a
my
hat
mind.
it was a hat of disguise because he like
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
like transformed into giant size.
Yep.
full wombo
Yep.
comboed and he died. Damar died quickly. But that also
Yes.
sent a warning to Keldar that someone was after his
Yep.
lieutenants.
Yeah.
So we pieced out of Valenza real quick after that. Keep trekking north, trying to stick to the back roads, and along the way we find hidden weapon caches in another car with a drill on
Mhm.
the front of it. That was cool.
That was the red
Looks
fight.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So time's a little wibbly wobbly in this part.
Also, Exilus, that is not the first time Lamu became a meat missile. That was during the assassin fight in season 1.
in season 1,
Yes.
Because
Where
that was
he
the
just-
point.
curled behind a shield and threw himself bodily at everything in that fight. That was great.
Didn't use his sword for a while, and then he did, and then it broke, and here we are.
We follow, once we get to Eastov and we're like arguing about what to do, we follow the sage advice of split the party. Also, because when you have 7 people, splitting the party is actually a lot safer than you think it is. Especially when a lot of them are tanks, like Ronan, and can just one-shot things. So, we follow the sage advice, split the party. We had a group go into the basement trying to rescue some refugees, and some people who were forced to work on rebuilding the fortress after its invasion, and then we had some people go to the barracks to try to kill the rest of the lieutenants, and then we had the crew with myself and Ronan and Lami to go distract Keldar right there one-on-one. Next slide.
I do kind of want to jump to this moment because I want to talk about the fight
Okay.
with Alexander.
Okay.
Just
Very
I
formative
know
fight.
I know how proud of Alexander you were, Curtis. You built this character to like TPK the three that went after him.
Alexander was built to be the slipperiest motherfucker on the planet because I learned from watching Damar get womboed that this was not going to work the way I wanted it to. He was built to be the luckiest son of a bitch alive. Like, none of these things were under his control. He's a doofus. He's just preternaturally lucky. Very similar to Domino from the X-Men. A couple levels in Rogue, like, just able to just get away from whatever you threw at him. His first shot of the fight was a crit sneak attack on Lythar that almost killed him.
Yeah, didn't you almost like knock Lami off of Helga?
He was designed to be squirrely and slippery. Looking back at that fight, I forgot he had evasion, so he would have taken none of the lightning damage he was dodging, instead of half. But he, that also led to a...
I remember talking to you after that fight being like, yeah, he shouldn't have died that quickly. I forgot about all of this.
And that's why you don't build PCs for your big bad PCs, because there's a lot of shit to keep track of once you're at that level as a DM.
You also had 3 separate combats.
Three separate parties, because the basement team was in a fight.
Yeah.
Your
The
team
lieutenant was on its way to a fight.
Because you, Thrall, and Ronan were in the brothel going after Icheb.
No, that was in Valentine.
No, that was in Easthoff.
It was. That's right. That's
the brothel
right,
was in Easthoff. Because the rats showed up.
That's right.
Yes.
But yes,
and that kicked things off, and that's when we... Yeah, okay, so we split into 2 teams at first, and then we split into a third.
Yeah, because Lythar and...
The ones going after Alexander, or the ones after the basement, and then the ones who went after Icheb, and then from there, once we took out Icheb very quickly, when you have a samurai who moves through darkness and a literal one-shot killer, and then the bard distraction, very good. And then from there, Team Kill Icheb split into Alexander team and Kaldar team.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was the Alexander fight was where Lythar Kendrick did one of the made the play that again has consequences that have yet to really be fully realized by everybody. But he it was one of those cool things where he felt was like swan dove off the back of Helga, used transport via plants to go back to Korumvor and ask for help from a group called the Shadows.
Some literal shady backup.
Literal shady people. Because they were sort of Ergin's associates. And he struck a deal with them for their assistance to come help us out because he got almost 100
One
to 0.
shot. You did 67
it was a
points
spicy crit.
It was
a
bad.
Spicy crit. And I was like, this. And Lami was like, cool, I'm going to use my entire healing pool on you, Lythar, and get you back in. And Lythar's like, I have another idea. And he didn't do the smart thing. He did the character thing, which makes it so much worse for things down the road.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it. And Xylus, I see. That Scope for plot I'll never get to use. Oh, no. I will get to use it again.
You think there's plot points?
No, that in particular, that deal he struck, because they brought 6 of their number with them. And Lythar was given a shadow dagger and was told to take 6 lives.
Which none of us quite know yet. Nobody ever found that out. I knew there was a deal, and I knew it was probably bad, but I did not know what it was. And then, unfortunately, Kendrick could not make it back to the stream. So
fortunately, not to give too much of the game away, the Shadows are very patient. They were the first shades, the first shadows.
Over 100 years old.
Oh yeah, because they were killed by Firanex when he burned Nildarni. Yes, the elven city of Nildarni in the Elderwood.
Where
burned
Urgen
it to
was
the ground. Burned Urgen's hometown to the ground. These were essentially like the Hiroshima heat shadows from a dragon's breath, given life. Also, the current captain of the Shadows is related to Urgen, and was not
Urgen's
there
son.
for it. Urgen's son, yeah, was sacrificed to become a shade, so that's dark.
Don't worry, we haven't looked too closely at that yet.
Yeah, so the Shadows have offered 6 of theirs and require 6 lives in return, but they are very, very patient people, and that's. They don't care as much about the 6 lives as something else. And that's all I'll say on the matter.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But yeah, so he went back, grabbed 6 friends, and then came back to the fight. And so everyone's back in Eastov again, because I'm not doing that split party across time zones.
Again, when we had 7 players, we gave Curtis a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of aneurysms.
It was very hard to keep us all in the same place. Very hard. We like to split up a lot. We're like, yeah, we can do 4 and 3 and still be fine. It'll be great. Curtis had a bad time with us a lot.
This is why it took 2 years
also
to make a battle map.
Because I made the boat a big problem.
Yeah. If I had done the Automaton Revolution or the Murder Mystery, would have been fine. Less is more. That's what we're learning from this. Less is
he had
more.
to keep giving us plot. Therefore, 4 plots happened on the boat, and it was not cohesive. It was very
we weren't
hard
talking
to
about the
make
boat.
cohesive. Correct.
The redacted time in our lives.
Yeah. So we finally kill Alexander, which was a really interesting fight to watch the ups and downs, because it was like suddenly going not their way and then suddenly going their way. It was wild to see, as you were saying about being slippery. While that's happening, the battle for the basement, right, making sure everyone's safe down the basement, trying to smuggle them out. There were some robots there causing a problem. Ronan challenges Keldar to a 1-on-1 battle, as per tradition of Goliath, I guess, in his backstory. And it goes about how you expect. Ronan fights honorably, and Keldar doesn't. So Keldar summons some shadow creatures from the Shadowfell, which actually bring Ronan down to death saves, and also a poorly timed earthquake. And this is why the bard became very good at revivify and healing after this battle. Another, all right, y'all, not letting that happen again. So yeah, that was actually a very scary moment where we all kind of thought Ronan would actually die from that last trick. But we didn't.
I remember watching that, and I'm pretty sure I was in chat where that was like the first moment where I'm like, oh my god. Of like, are we here? Is this where we're at in this campaign? And just like kind of like quietly freaking out to myself. Because you really didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah,
for a while you were so far away.
He had brought Lythar and Ronan to death saves on the avalanche fight, on the mountainside fight.
Red.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm the problem. Yes, this is about me now.
Yes, enjoy over there. Yeah, so we had experienced death saves for those 2 before, which was very scary, but I knew I could get to them I'd
Yeah.
polymorphed into a battle angel at that point, so I could fly to them.
Point of order,
And
Ronan actually died
actually
because I used Finger
died.
of Death.
Oh, that's true.
I
and
dropped
and
Ronan
I
to
did
0.
revive. I did use the diamonds to revive.
Yeah.
And Lythar.
Lythar went into saves when the Lonely decided to give him a big old hug.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
That's right. And I was trying to revive Ronan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
No, he died.
Did Lythar
He died because I used revive twice.
So
Yes.
Ronan died. Oh, Lythar died too?
Yeah.
I thought we got to
died
Lythar in time.
And then the Keldar fight, Ronan died again, and I had to revive quick while Lami was almost at death's door, and and heal him while I was trying to save Ronan, which a very poorly timed earthquake got in the way of that. That I almost did not make it.
Yeah.
Very bad.
This section of season 3 was, I think, the beginning of really the emotional damage that Curtis could possibly cause. And then also, I think, a very like solidifying point of the party. Where even with season 1, season 2, and hearing all these things, but watching y'all react to things and to play off of each other in these very hard moments was a beautiful, like, just storytelling as a cast. And I like to, like, y'all deserve all of the compliments and things like that. So as we're like going through this, I'm just like, it's really amazing to see those things happen. And also, like, being a player, like, in that moment back on the first Ronan death, of how intense Thalia got. Because also in that fight, there were so many stupid mistakes that were made that didn't need to happen, because impulses took control. And that was like the first time where it's like, hey, we need to think about this, and we can't go into something that we know is going to be hard without actually talking about it and at least trying to have a plan. Which I think led to the success of the Eastov fight in a way.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Because we did have a plan for Eastov.
Yeah.
We do well with planned encounters, I would say. And it was hard with 7 people when we were back that big. We do pretty well with planned encounters. Surprise encounters with the impulses for a lot of our characters, because a lot of our characters are impulse driven in the moment, which is hard when the DM takes advantage of it, and rightly so, because there are people who will take it. There are villains out there that would take advantage of it. That makes sense. But it was getting to the point where it was becoming more and more dangerous, that impulse. As we got better and better, the consequences become bigger and bigger. So yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, the avalanche fight was like one of the first times we saw that consequence of our impulse as a first time.
I still leave that to the fact that it would not have happened if Patrick didn't just punch a shadow. Because half the party was so far away that nothing was happening, but Patrick, seeing a ghost, being the cleric, just punched out. And you had half the group that was hundreds of feet away, which is where the longbow thing came into, because that's all that.
Because it was like, quick, I have a longbow. Can I shoot them? You're at long range. Now I have a sharpshooter. Great, go.
And I still, like, it took like 3 turns for me to even get into range.
Yeah.
Y'all,
of just like me running.
Top of a mountain.
Yeah.
The fun part about that fight and starting to use the Shadowfell monsters was because there are multiple menageries, as you have all discovered. There's sort of one on each plane of reality, in case that particular plane gets wiped out. And in the 3 months in between, Robbie had spent some time and discovered that the Shadowfell one was broken, which means that Red and Red's associates have Shadowfell beasties contained in these little tiny containment cubes, like square Pokeballs, so that way Nintendo can't sue us. And so that is where the underhanded trickery kind of came from, and getting to throw some Shadowfell monsters at people, and in particular, the fight that killed two of them, that killed Lythar and Ronan. I had a Lonely, which basically is a sad friend who has extendo stabby arms that impale you and drag you closer. And he's like, friend, friend, and really just made everyone uncomfortable.
That voice needs to go away.
The other one was an Angry, which I'm like, all right, if Ronan's going to punch, this guy's going to punch back. And we're going to see what happens when I put Ronan up against something that throws its weight around like he does. Because if you look at the monster manual, if it's been hit in the last turn, it deals like the dice size, or what is it? Like, it is better in combat if it gets hit. It attacks recklessly and just goes in. And I was like, we're just going to put the two of them together and see what happens. And that was such a different fight. Because, again, the party divided itself on impulse. And if Thalia couldn't literally crack out her angelic form and just start kicking ass, that fight would have gone very differently. And, like, we'd have, like, a whole bunch of backups in there. Backup PCs. Because choices were made.
All right, we time jumped a little bit, so we'll time jump back to
after. So we defeat Kaldar. Surprise, because we were mucking about in that basement. It activated the containment center to pop up into the city, which was this Underdark War. Remember that whole thing that's forgotten to time that everyone forgets about? Yeah.
Because Patrick,
there's a prison hidden under Eastcoff. Surprise! There's as we're all emotionally traumatized from dying and almost dying and watching our friends die. Curse is like, hey, here's this prison containing prisoners of war. Have fun.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really we got a little bit more information on it.
And
we're like,
that was mostly to your knowledge of spending time with Robbie.
Yes.
Because
Robbie
you were
and
able to access those codes. Because of
Robbie
your
and I, and to some degree, Firo could as well. Being a Warforged, it recognized that build. So in those degrees, yes. And it kind of gave us like an awareness that this was out here. Kind of like when we discovered the menagerie, we knew what it did, we knew what was there, and we knew there's a network. But it was just one piece in the puzzle. We still don't have all the pieces. And like one of them, we first heard about the Citadel while we were there, which is now becoming a big thing in current plot. So it's like it's hinting at things. We just don't know we're not equipped on how to deal with it yet. Eventually we make the hard decision of putting the containment unit back underground until we can send more professional researchers and investigators to look at it. We were like, because the thing was like, let's blow it up, and we're like, no, there are prisoners of war here. That's not humane. Like, no, you cannot do that. And they're like, well, what do we do? And we're like, I guess just go back underground for now.
So the containment center, the menagerie, and the Citadel are three different things that are all related?
Menagerie, less so. Menagerie is more on the Primus plot line.
Okay.
The containment unit and the Citadel are on the Underdark War plotline.
Okay.
And because forces in the Underdark War, there was all that Warforged and everything like that, the Primus has some links into the Underdark War.
Okay.
But the Menagerie is... Robbie's using it as a connective thing to the Primus, so, which does, again, transfer into the Underdark War. So it's not technically connected, but we don't have any better connection, so Robbie is using that to connect to the technology that you would find in this probably the Citadel, we don't know, and the containment units.
Curtis, I see you like itching and like jumping. I don't know
sorry.
if it is.
No, you're good. You're good. So yeah, the menageries are legitimately inspired by, I think it's like the Nordstrom Seed Vault. It is a seed vault in Norway that is just like, we have living samples of everything in case if something goes extinct, if the world ends, like something dies, we have a sample here to help rebuild an ecosystem. That is what the menageries are for. The menageries, sort of as a plot device, are not really connected to the Underdark War, because that is a deity going, this is a fail-safe plan. Now, there have been crossovers with that. And the Citadel, the containment units, those are all remnants of this war from the Coalition, the group of above-ground races that are banding together to fight the dastardly Underdark races. And in this containment unit, there are all these Underdark prisoners of war that have been petrified, that have been turned to stone and left there as containment. And when a particular lore bard thawed one out at the politely requested that one of them be thawed out of captivity, having an interaction with it, and then discovering what do you remember from that encounter, Rachel? I'm curious.
That the prisoners were feeble-minded in addition to petrified, essentially.
I'll give you this, though.
Thalia has some very hard feelings about that. She does not.
They weren't feeble-minded at the start.
Correct. It was in response. I was trying to ask some gentle questions about who they were, what they were, and their connection to the Underdark. And Lolf, I mentioned trying to find some familiarity, and that was a big no-no.
Yeah. And then the feeble-minded kind of set in, and then they were contained again. But yeah, so this containment,
because they were panicking so much.
Yeah. So this containment unit has many individuals worth interviewing.
But we don't know if any of them are also feeble-minded.
Huh. Interesting. What an interesting thing to possibly circle back to later in season 4.
Nope.
Nope. Asterisk for start of campaign 2.
Oh god, don't get me started on that, please. But yeah.
Yeah.
Not at the start.
Yeah. That kind of after that we headed back, and that's where we had to part ways with some of our party members. Like Lythar went to go study more about being a druid from the dad that he figured out actually was alive.
Actually, his
and the mentor.
Yeah, he is hanging out with Alistair, who is a druid cleric of the Oakfather, because at this point Patrick finally kind of reconnects with his wife. Because they had arguments about work-life
actually retiring.
Balance. And he picked up,
promised to retire for good.
Yeah, he picked up. He visited her because they never divorced after like 20 years of being separated. She had just gone out. And so he showed up on her doorstep and apologized, and he and Mary have settled into a lovely home together. And that was kind of where we left Patrick to a happy retirement, because not everybody has to die in a D&D
We
game.
page him every now and then for therapy.
That's true.
It's the on-call therapist, and it's like, hi.
Correct.
And
I believe last we knew, he and Thalia had like weekly check-ins because he knew she was not okay.
Have a breakdown.
He knew she was like 2 steps away from a mental breakdown after seeing all of her friends die.
And then sorry, go ahead.
I would say this is also like in the break off is where we also see the algae.
Yeah.
And the prism pattern.
Yeah. There was a lake.
There was
an
a lake.
old incursion site, which from that sort of from the containment unit, there was a record of seismic activity from the Underdark Wars. And there was one such incursion, and actually a small one-shot that Mike ran at Lake Dublin, where there was some large underground entity had basically punched a hole in the earth, and folks were sent in to clear it out so they could install an enormous gate. Underneath the water which everyone referred to as spicy water because of this red algae fungal bloom happening. Toys in the town were marching into the lake, like picking up kitchen knives, shears, sharp and blunt objects alike, and like marching into the lake to wage war on something, which worked about as well as you'd expect. Party went down, did a little bit of moseying around, found again this 7 prism system surrounded by a very large, intelligent hive mind of algae and fungus.
Nuked the lake.
Kind of nuked the lake. But the algae itself is intelligent and can communicate. Robbie has rejoined the group at this point, hurls his happy ass in to go kill this thing, is about to die before his life is exchanged for Rachel's favorite character, Ozzy, to be on stage.
I loved Ozzy.
I'm sorry, I that particular NPC and I'm just like, get Ozzy off the screen.
Watching Rachel's brain turn off the second the accent comes out is like, oh, okay, great, we'll move this along.
Yeah. The others have a great time with Ozzy, and I'm glad that he's near and dear to many people, but yeah, not my favorite NPC. Ozzy can happily go live in the hive mind and stay away from me. So
he
was great in the first time we saw him, but then he came back and I was like, enough. Why did this come back? This was a fun little one area thing.
Ozzy, so
you stay in your area.
So
and
Ozzy is a bridge troll that they met on their way north to Rekinsvik, Valentel, and all of those places.
Met him on the way to Terraborn first.
Oh yes, we did.
Yeah.
I apologize. Met him on the way to Terraborn, and he was collecting bridge money to fund a watershed. Robbie put him in touch with the guild network in Terraborn to franchise several bridges, and also to win back the company from his ex-wife Sharon. I apologize. He did also offer some troll spit to help heal Ronan's arm because he had gotten chewed on by a hungry, and it wasn't healing well. And so, because trolls can regenerate pretty much any body part, a salve made of mostly spit ended up helping Ronan get activity back in that arm before he went and aged himself into the late 80s.
We're not there yet, Curtis.
Sorry, spoilers. But yeah, so Ozzy helped out and made the sacrifice and traded himself for Robbie as a thank you for helping him like sort of start this business thing. So he is currently hanging out with Alistair, a wood elf druid, and Lythar and Cora, as Lythar is learning more about how to be a druid and what that means, like expanding his worldview a little more from the sort of sheltered thing that he's doing. And Callus, for the sake of Rachel, I'm not going to do the Aussie accent here. You can go back
do
and
it. Ready?
You can deafen on Discord. I'm Ozzy. It's very nice to meet you. It's honestly, it's a little bit. Hello, friend. He had business cards written on very large sheets of paper. He's a very nice man. He's just not literate. He's not a good reader. But he had a 3-piece suit because my friend told me it was very important to have a 3-piece suit for business dealings.
All right, we need to get Rachel back in here.
You're safe. You can come back. Which I realize is now that I've heard Operator's version of that voice, it's very similar to that. And I'm trying not to think about that to myself too much.
Every bridge deity is just the same at a lower or higher register.
He's a friendly bridge troll. We like that man. So that is where we left Lythar. That is where we left a couple of other folks, making their way back into town. Boy, there was a lot that happened at the tail end of that episode, and everyone was real sad about it. But that was also the first time we saw the sort of prism magic that the Coalition was using. Because that is how of all the things you're fighting in the dark, you can use light to combat them. That has always been the bane of every single Underdark race, is just bright light. So what better to use in combat? Also, reason for the toys, there was an Eidolon that had lost its protective guardian statues to this fungus, and so it was grabbing entities of defense and grabbing things that were cared for and basically worshipped as defenders against nightmares and things, and it grabbed toys because that was the closest thing for his body to slip into and go. So that's fun. That was fun and exciting. I forgot about him.
Because
Anyway.
I think after this is,
Season 4, where we are now.
yeah, but there's also, this is up to your discretion, because there's an episode that didn't happen. The IRL episode.
Oh, yes.
It happened. It's recorded. It's somewhere in the bowels of my computer, and I'm chugging through the
Yeah.
season 2 recap before we get to that, because that's going to take actual editing, real editing time and money.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's a cluster.
So,
Rachel, I don't know what's
Like,
on your next slide, so
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
was
if
like-
I
this
don't
is-
have any more slot. I ran out of time. This is where I
Ah.
left off.
Oh, this is the last
I
slide.
okay.
I
cool.
wanted to get to, I wanted to get to the stuff that we haven't like talked about
Yeah.
in a while.
Okay, got you.
I didn't know how far we'd be going, and that's when I ran out of time and had to go eat dinner.
How
and stuff,
dare
so,
you not
yeah.
build a perfect, like, 90-page PowerPoint slide in an hour? Also,
like-
thank you for that. Is completely joke.
God.
Holy shit! I didn't. When you were like, "Is a PowerPoint slide too much?" I was like, "If you build it, I'm here for it." And I
Yeah.
honestly wasn't expecting a PowerPoint presentation with clip art.
That's beautiful.
Like,
Thank you so much,
a
Rachel.
fucking overachiever. Like, I grumble about making battle maps, and you're like, "I did a PowerPoint in an hour, whatever."
I didn't realize that was.
No, we appreciate your
I
hard
thought
work.
people just did that. Oops.
That's a teacher thing,
Yeah.
I guess. I stare at a PowerPoint and I get PTSD.
That's like every other
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
hour for me.
That's fair.
But yeah, so jumping back in to so from the fungal,
Yeah.
we go into travel back to
Really quick travel back to
Yeah.
Cornboard during the war.
we meet the chat built NPC that gives Ronan all of the hell that the chat wanted it to.
Literally designed to ruin his day,
Yeah.
and I've never been happier.
Also, things that like might come up later in life, but also within the Catal, we awaken one of the Warforged that is in there
Mm-hmm.
that re-inhabits as a spirit, as a soul from Firo's past.
Yeah, which we find out that Firo might be a soul inhabiting a different body.
Yeah. Which is a whole piece of put that on the back burner because we're dealing with like tangible things at the moment.
We've been leaving that if Deeps is ever able to make
Yeah.
it back. That was his personal plot, and we've been kind of
That was.
respecting that.
I will say that was a backstory conversation. He's just like, I don't know, throw stuff at me, and I went, okay, let's go. Let's. Sure, you've given me an open door and enough character stuff that I can make this juicy. Also, conceptually, Firo might be a prince. Maybe.
Maybe. Who knows? We know.
Kondo.
not sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Prince of
To
Kondo.
the Raj who was despised
Mhm.
and is now outed and hiding in Cornfor. You know.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
political things.
Mhm.
This is why I asked the geopolitical question, because it's gonna matter.
But yeah, so we get to now the plan before the wedding, the episode that didn't happen, or will eventually happen, and we're now at. I would think this is like the kickoff to season 4
Yes.
that we were halfway through.
Yes.
The wedding between the mayor and Lady Cost.
Mhm. Two characters from season 1.
Yeah.
Lady Cost was sort of the village village granny is a little, not quite the right way to phrase it, but definitely
Auntie village.
the lady of the village, the one that like if you needed stuff, you went to Lady Cost and she got you squared away. Didn't matter what it was, she got you. Turns out that's because in Long Pike, yes, very first town they hung out at. Turns out that's because she's an archfey who had a fling with the mortal, the vanilla human Mayor Alvaron way back when. And thanks to the party's interactions and getting the city up and running together, they rekindled a relationship and got happily married. And that's where the season kicked off.
Of the wedding.
The wedding is on YouTube. Everyone loves a good wedding. Nothing bad happens at a wedding, ever.
Oh, never bad happens at a wedding besides, many new colored Motrons and robot demon dogs and, just an enchanted sword.
Axe.
Sword.
No, if it was a sword, Lami would have used it.
Yeah, feeble mind gas.
Yes.
Yeah, because
yeah.
Thalia feeble-minded. But yes, that was so when the team found the Catal on top of
Catal being the car.
The Catal being the transport vehicle that Red and some of his goons were trying to dig out and play around with. It had basically a trailer on the back, and inside was a very a metallic demon panther dog thing that teleported away. And it came back at this wedding and was summarily put down because it was after an axe being carried by a party crasher, Brother Bartholomew, who is currently not dead, but God, he wishes he was. Because an archfey decided that if you crash my wedding, I will crash every single fiber of your being.
Did they teleport away together?
Oh, Lady Cos dragged him into the shadows and then came back later.
Okay.
Because she said, you tried to kill my beloved, and I will end you. Brother Bartholomew, as a former member of a group called the Shields of the Saint, which Lami was a member of, which sort of pushed him onto this Oath of the Watchers paladin of fighting off threats from outside this world, fighting off extraplanar threats and dealing with things that kill citizens. And as a looping in point to things that no one can remember, the Shields of the Saint call themselves that because they cannot remember the name of their patron saint. She is simply known as the Saint because when she fought a demon with its dying breath, it cursed her name from everything. But they remember her as the Saint, and they fight in her name. Bartholomew became a little disillusioned with this, and through Lami literally showing up and performing divine acts that he and his brothers could not imagine, had a bit of a falling out with his own faith and thought about, why are we protecting? Why are we so defensive? Why do we just protect? Let's go on the offensive. And so the swords of the saints sort of got their start. Bartholomew rolled up with an axe that Lami's eventually had possession of, and they're trying to reforge into a weapon. But the axe was called the Last Call because the guy who made it had a sense of humor and a drinking problem. And Bartholomew was basically showing up and saying, you're a fairy. You shouldn't be here. Get out of politics. Get out of the material plane. Anyone else here who is anything that isn't vanilla mortal belongs on the material plane should not be here.
Just like half her wedding party. If not,
and most
of the people there.
There were a lot of, there was a list of people, including Auntie, who took that personally.
Okay, so before you go into Auntie, how did the party originally meet Auntie? Because I
Robbie.
don't want to divulge any more into what has happened because everyone can go up on YouTube and catch up if they'd like.
Part of this is to summarize that because I don't want to put people through that terrible, terrible nonsense when we didn't know what we were doing and we don't have money to go back and remaster those episodes.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
the whole
how
thing with
did-
Auntie. So Robbie, in his search for answers about the Primus, was like, "Let me go plane hopping. Let me ask these people who are like plane hopping." So he was like, "All right, I'm gonna go plane hopping. See you later." And we're like, "Robbie, what? Robbie, no." And so we ended up having to follow him because he went missing for 2 days. And we're like, "We gotta go find the kindergartner. Let's go." And we followed his tracks accidentally to the hells.
Robbie essentially was trying to, because he was like, people dream when they're asleep, so I wasn't asleep. But when people are dead, they do not dream. Therefore, I died. Like, in my time between
Mhm.
Underdark War.
the Underdark
Yeah.
Wars, being awoken and taught how commerce works as a guild person by
Mhm.
my adoptive father, Gino, this gnome, whose name has popped up once or twice. He was like, I was not asleep because I did not dream. Therefore, I was dead. What happens to me when I die? I must find out. So he basically found a group of people that had all died before, like an AA group of people who had all passed on. And one of them was named Roost, who is a tiefling who essentially
Parties it up in the hells.
he is a family member of Auntie, and would drink holy water to get drunk, because he has like a very direct tie to an archdevil of the nine hells. And he was like, oh, I always hate this part. And like Robbie was like, I would like to meet this Auntie, perhaps she has answers. And so Ross like threw back like top shelf holy water and kind of died in order to open a portal and fell into the hells to go visit Auntie.
Can you describe to me
could
what
you-
top shelf holy water is? Like, like from the river that.
directly like if not blessed by the hand of that particular deity, but like if not the deity, like an archangel came down and was like, this is used for smiting demons and darker things and sending them back where they came from. This is not what he drinks for fun. This is what he drinks when he wants to go home. And so he like wrapped his tail around Robbie and said, hold on tight, took a swig. Like his eyes just turned to X's. He toppled off the hay bale he was sitting on, and the portal just opened and he fell into the hells with Robbie coming with him. The
Gotcha.
party
Spent
then. Sorry,
9
go.
months in the hells because of time zone differences. So Robbie grew up a little bit.
Learned how to
in
play the
two days he
accordion.
was missing. Learned how to play the accordion. Has a connect direction to beer, unlimited beer.
That's where he got his duster that he in the pocket. There's always
Oh
beer.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's where the beer comes from. We met Auntie in the hells, which was real great for the half celestial party. Remember?
Auntie is a sweet, sweet lady.
We were very nice. We followed the rules. Somebody else did not. We watched them get annihilated. And we went, have a lovely day, Auntie. We're going to go home now. Thank you for your generous hosting.
Think like old Southern soirees, like that kind of party. All these demons and devils are very polite and very kind to each other on her property. There may have been a fallen angel that showed up at the end when things started to get hairy, and that's when y'all left. But that's Auntie. So Auntie, as a family friend, was invited to the wedding, and so she took Bartholomew's attack somewhat personally, and helped dispatch a number of his cultists.
Yeah, because that was the main of course Lady Cost, the Archfey, Auntie, and then Jeeves.
Jeeves, yep, Auntie's butler.
Because of course, why was his name not be Jeeves?
It wasn't until the party got
and then the
a
party
hold of it.
insisted, and Auntie was like, "Fine."
Callus, the Continental's a very good reference for that. Very much like, you do not spill blood on my turf unless it is agreed to. It is very much a neutral space. It is out of respect for her, because if you wanted to kill your rival, you totally could, because that's the place in the Nine Hells where you kill someone and they stay dead. But you better run or be willing to accept the fact that Auntie is about to doom you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeeves is I believe a chain devil, who sort of is her manservant and runs the house, runs her estate.
Yeah.
And she's a very sweet old lady. She wouldn't hurt a fly unless that fly caused a problem. You understand? All right. Yeah, drink your tea now. I'll be right back. She's great. I love Auntie because it's like, welcome to the Nine Hells, and she's in like a gingham dress and just looks like a normal human, and everyone is giving her the utmost respect.
Yeah. Oh, bless your heart.
Oh, bless your heart coming from an archdevil is not a sentence you want to hear.
Yeah.
Damn your heart. You're just the sweetest thing.
All right, so we're in like kind of, I mean, there's a few episodes after this that are present day.
Mm-hmm.
If there's is there anything with this recap that in the remainder of season 4, because I don't want to get into season 4, because it's definitely, those episodes that are up are definitely worth the watch of trying to, because they've been fantastic.
We've shrunk down the amount of content to a feasible amount to consume.
Yeah. And there's now we've kind of our party has shrunk also. We're down to 3 consistent players.
Yes.
Usually.
So the story is a little bit more smoother. Is there any plot points, especially for you, Rachel, going through season 1 to now, that you're like, oh wait, these connect? Oh my god, here's the strings. Wait, where is my giant whiteboard with the red yarn that you're pulling together?
Erica, you did not see my current whiteboard.
I know what your current whiteboard looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about season 4 has been tricky because as the lore bard and the Brotherhood member, Thalia was talking to everyone and had an idea of everyone's little personal missions and storylines, and because she was she wanted to help as much as she could. So as a player right now, I'm trying to navigate with so many people who have had to park their characters elsewhere because they can't make the streams anymore. I'm trying to reckon with, okay, what is a thread that I should be continuing to pull on in the absence of that person who was really tugging on it, and I was just kind of helping them a little bit. And like the whole Primus thing, that was a lot of Robbie. And I was just kind of backup because I spent the 3 months with him, so I was now therefore the second most informed person and the only one keeping track with Robbie. She was like his babysitter for a little while because he was 5 years old. He needed someone to help him
and everybody
focus.
else just left.
Yeah. So like the whole Primus thing, I don't know whether to keep pulling that thread or keep paying attention to it without, and same with the whole Kondo thing with Firo and the double soul in the Warforged body and in that whole awakening of automatons. Again, knew about it, kind of was helping Firo, but letting him take the lead. Now he's not there to take the lead. I don't know if that's something that I need to keep connecting, or if that's something that Curtis is purposely leaving out because that was somebody's personal line, or leaving it there for them to pick back up if they ever are able to rejoin for a little bit. So it's kind of been a hard balancing game of trying to figure out what he still wants me to connect from season 1, season 2, season 3.
Yeah.
And in terms of all of these big plot lines that have followed us, the ones that have actually followed us from the beginning to the end, this Primus, this Underdark, because I was mostly supporting those, and now being the most knowledgeable out of the remaining party about those things, it's been hard to piece together what Curtis wants to let lie for a little bit and what Curtis is trying to hint to, like,
Mhm.
keep pulling, keep connecting.
Yeah.
So I have my crazy theories every now and
Yeah.
then. You see them
Curtis,
on
take your
stream.
headphones
Usually
off.
yeah, you usually see them on stream as I
Okay,
still
you can
don't-
stream. Okay, you can speak freely now. Curtis can't hear us.
no,
So-
you can't.
So this is the things that I want to know with
Okay.
Curtis not being able to hear. What are
Okay.
the things that Thalia wants to pull at, though? Like, of those, like, what is, besides the Modrons, because that's kind of like where we're at, what's interesting her? And does she think it's all connected?
Very hard to say. I'm covering my mouth so he can't see what I'm saying.
Oh, he walked off
He can't
screen.
read lips. So, I think she wants to keep pulling out. She's afraid to keep pulling on the Underdark Wars a little bit, but she does think that it's such a key,
Yeah.
into what our current plot line is. And that kind of ties into the Promise a little bit. I'm kind of leaving the Promise alone because, again,
Mhm.
I as a player had a hard time grasping it under anyway. And
Yeah.
now without Mike there to help drive, I'm like, I'm lost
Yeah.
anyway. Even though I shouldn't be. Sorry. And then, yeah, so I think the Underdark thing is the one she wants to pull on the most right now because that's the one that she thinks is really at this point the key to
Yeah.
a lot of things, finding the Citadel, finding a lot of the stuff. And although she's trying to figure out if somebody's coming back in time to unhide the Underdark Wars,
Right.
should she keep digging?
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Like, is her involvement going to hasten big problems with this timeline, or is her involvement trying to dig up things going to help prevent
Yeah.
that battle? How will the knowledge help? So I think that's a thread that she's going to keep pulling on. I don't with or without the party because she's at odds with the party right now. So
Well, because I also think that, like, Ianti kind of hinted that might be a trajectory worth pulling with.
Yeah.
Because history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And, like, with the cyclical things, sorry for anyone who is in the chat that has not been caught up. These are
We're
spoilers.
sorry.
Are bad.
It's getting weird. Time wibbly wobbly.
Yeah, it's all soup. That, like, kind of, like, hinted at those threads being a history repeating. Yeah, it's strange, and I'm loving every moment of it.
It's really hard, and especially with Thalia being kind of at odds with Ronan, and she's trying to figure out how to respond to that. There's a small part of me and her that wants to just go strike off and devil may care, start pulling some threads because
you have your next location.
Yes.
With the archipelago.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be.
Yeah. Curtis. Curtis.
I'm pretty sure he stole his headphones, so he knows.
Curtis.
Yeah, he stole his headphones.
You were listening the whole time, you son of a gun.
I was not. I just know when my name is said by someone who wants to get my attention because I have years of parental trauma to back that up. That's neither here nor there. Hearing a muffled from the other room usually is a bad thing. So hello, I'm here.
Hi, we missed you.
Hi, hello. I'm sure you. I can't wait to go back and watch this episode during editing and figure out what brilliance you think that I've come up with. Because, yeah. Anyway, I'm smart. I know what I'm doing.
All right. So, Curtis, we're in the last like 15 minutes of when this stream normally ends. I love how we started this with like, not going to take the whole 3 hours.
It's not going to take 3 hours.
It's my fault. I showed up with a 12-slide presentation.
Unbelievable. How dare you put in the extra work?
It's been a joy this entire time to sit through and talk through this. Curtis, Rachel, I'm going to do the same thing that I did to Curtis.
Oh, no.
Moving forward.
Okay.
Is there threads in your story that you wish they pulled on more,
Oh man.
things that are connected, things that are still entangled that you think that they have kind of left behind.
And again, she had mentioned this a little bit about the players and about the player-driven stuff. There will always be things that get left behind. Some of that needs to be left behind because the story has grown in a different direction and outgrown that problem. Or the scale of the problem is no longer really there. With Lythar, with Robbie, with Firo. Robbie's king now. Like, he's got his own kingdom to run. He's got a whole host of people that actually his city council is a direct copy of the Ashe and Shade, the original Ashe and Shade Committee, like racially, because that's how he recognized his friends. He wanted to surround himself with comfort. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. There's the Underdark War. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Each of the individual character things are the way you make an interesting conflict is you have a character's beliefs and you have a character's ideals and you bash them into each other and see what happens. So like Lythar had he was originally just like a hunter and he wanted a pet, and so that's how he got Korra, by going on this little like quest to change his subclass. And he's coming to terms with what it means to really understand nature is not just growth, it is also death. And by the mycosynth is this ageless, timeless entity, hive mind, that is just this repository of ancient knowledge because it cannot truly be killed. So what happens when you introduce this 100-year-old, essentially teenager elf to this thing that is ancient and really unfathomable, and what happens in that conflict? And I would love to do more with that, but again, we lost that player. Firo was also an interesting one because it unintentionally became a trans allegory, which was not my intent because I'm not the person to be telling that story. But as far as an identity thing, you have the collection of memories, the collection of experiences in this body that is Firo, and you have the soul and the knowledge and the identity of this other individual, and how does what happens? Let's explore that in an interesting like allegorical way, as every good sci-fi and fantasy book has since forever. But again, like Rachel was saying, what threads can we pull on, what threads can we can't? And I have remind me before we wrap, I have a note for her about that I want to sort of say publicly. But as far as the plot, the nice thing about not having, here's my elaborate story structure and 4-act play and all of these bits and pieces. I understand, having a theater background and watching a lot of TV, I understand how these structures work, and I understand how to twist them to my advantage, I think. My goal is not to come up with this grand epic story and have my friends follow along through it, because if I want to do that, I'd be a writer. But by having conflicts, by having things to butt heads against and see how people respond to those pressures and players respond to those pressures, that puts us in a really interesting position and a really interesting situation to watch. And I can say this now that Rachel has her headphones off, and I'll say this to you in confidence and also to you in the chat. The thing I'm so excited for is if they talk to the shadows again. Because the 6 souls, the 6 kills that Lythar has to make is not the end goal. They don't give a flying fuck about that. They don't care how long it takes. In fact, they want it to take a long time, because that's not their goal.
I
Korra,
kind of know what their goal is.
Korra is a spirit of the moon. She's a moon wolf, because that was a whole thing that Kendrick and I had kind of figured out. She's a spirit of the moon. And the moon goes through phases. And wouldn't it be neat as a little reminder of the debt that he owes to the shadows, there's just a little black spot on the center of her chest, and it grows over time. It causes her no pain. But every new moon, that it grows and covers her from tip to tail, and every new moon peels itself. Full moon, I apologize. In the light of the full moon, it peels itself away when the shadow is most defined, and there is a shadow Korra every month.
And you've hinted that on stream with like
Sprinkle that in there. Here and there.
You sprinkled it back in the day.
But that is one of those things where like those plot threads are continuing on. The deep personal stuff is less of the focus of that. But there is definitely repercussions to some of these conversations. And I try. The nice thing about, again, circling back to this whole thing, because I have villains, I have Red, I have Yeva, the Sapphire Dragon, or not Sapphire, the Blue Dragon. I have forces spinning in the world, and when those forces come into conflict with their friends, with this party, that is where things happen. And they're starting. The party is now a high enough level and high enough notoriety, and they're digging around at all the right things with the abridgment. When those pieces start to click and come together, and I know they will, because Rachel's too smart for that. Like, Chris and Josh, I can like kind of lead them by the nose. Rachel's gonna smell that a mile away. And Chris also guesses my plots really well, which is makes me really second guess if I'm good at my job or not. But that's also the point of having a good twist, is you can see it coming, and you don't just change the plot because somebody guessed the ending. You reward that. But again, because it's player driven, because I have put forces in the world, the players have helped me put forces and enemies in the world, I can pull them in an interesting direction based on what my players are doing and keep the threads somewhat connected. The one thread that I think is probably just going to stop is some of the stuff in Terraborn with Ramir, the the gangster boss, which was a whole other thing involving we had a dark party because we were short a couple of players, and they were the Cornvore 4, and they did a heist. They stole a Modron and got out, and then they got to Terraborn and sort of became crime lords. And that's why most of the party is banned. But Ronan, but also that gives a low-level enemy that they got that beat them, and now they want to go back and deal with that problem. So if the party wants to go back and deal with Ramir, they can. If they want. Or they can just circumvent the problem, and if they come back in a couple of months, that problem's resolved itself. Because the world is spinning. A 3-month time gap, a lot of things can happen in 3 months in a world where the biggest heroes in the room right now have just vanished. Yeah. But I think once we start digging into the abridgment, because that is a whole other adventure of what happens when a war is erased. What happens when this, like, I hesitate to use the phrase generational trauma, right? But imagine if you took pre 9/11 in the U.S., all the entire Iraq war, and just never happened, and we're just like, we're at the point we're at right now. But that war didn't happen. We have no context for it. This is just the way the world is. What does that do? What does that mean? And can we come to terms with what happens when a piece of history is erased for some reason or another? It's happening a lot in schools right now, and I really didn't want this to be a fucking predictive D&D game. But we cannot learn from the mistakes we make without a record of those mistakes. That is why, like, there is memory of the mistakes, and there are like Confederate statues to generals that are like literally worshiping the losers. But we cannot. The fact that I read an excerpt from a history book where it's like Rosa Parks like didn't want to give up her seat, And it had nothing to do with her race. She just didn't want to give up her seat, and that led to that, like, sort of kicked off. Like, that history erasure written by the victors, but done in an instant and globally. Because the abridgment is why when Thalia unlocked and unfroze one of the captives, he remembered who he was when he came out of suspended animation. But the abridgment sort of smothered and put him back under.
It's the same reason why Evelyn got the nosebleed living through the abridgment.
And she was altered by that.
Yeah.
But because
on that note,
yes.
Finish your statement, and then we're going to bring Rachel back.
Yes. I love finding, like, it's a really big, dumb question. What happens if X? How does the world spin on if X occurred? What happens? And then I park my chaotic Muppet D&D players into the middle of it, and I find cute ways to bring them together and let them explore in the sandbox, because I'm not a writer. I can't do dialogue. I can't come up with pithy lines unless I have time to practice. Reading through my notes, I had bangers. And now I don't have that because, like, I can't do the dialogue like I used to. But I'm having so much more fun exploring concepts. Anyway, that's super high art of me, and I'm sorry.
I think you sell yourself short on just your pithy one-liners and how well you tell a story. You may not be a writer in the traditional sense of pen and paper, but you are indeed a writer in the sense of storytelling.
Oh, thank you.
With that being said,
Rachel, come back.
Rachel,
come back.
Rachel. Boop, boop, boop.
It's safe now. It's okay. I'm not going to do the Aussie voice, even though I saw the request in chat. I'm on to you.
I'm going to extend the compliment that I just told Curtis, because as we all know, Curtis, he sells himself short of just how fantastic of a storyteller he is.
Yep.
But that also goes for y'all as players in helping to write a story. We may not be, and this is overarching for any TTRPG, any D&D game, any campaign. We may not be traditional writers, but we are storytellers. We may not put pen to paper, but we do have relationships as characters. We do have relationships in this overarching story that may not have been the end game or the bullet points that you think of whenever you write a book. But you can take the Ashe and Shade Committee in these 3 seasons, in these 4.5 seasons, wherever we are at. And from tonight, I'm pretty sure that we can tell that this is a fully fledged story. And I would read this novel series, hands down, multiple times. So that is definitely a testament to both of y'all. And the rest of the team that is kind of in characters and party members who have helped build this. That being said, before we end tonight, is there any last knowing comments of things? Because it is 10 o'clock, so we're going to keep this short, Curtis.
I'll just mute myself and we'll call it a stream.
Of going forward, because we are still split, if I believe so. Thalia is still in the Brotherhood. The boys are still laying down in the rain. Actually,
no. That was back 1 episode. So
yeah,
they are now on the hunt. They're down in Durganfor.
Okay.
I visited Durganfor, and I'm they're at the Artificing Academy. I'm now at my father's tavern.
Okay. But we're still split.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look forward to in the next 2 sessions? I'm going to start with Rachel.
This is gonna go radical. Something that's kicked in my mind the last 2 days or so. is potentially before going off to the archipelago, with or without the boys. Potentially finding blue corn tortilla and handing over the dagger without the boys.
Baked potato?
Or big load baked
Yeah.
potato.
Because you're on the timeline.
I'm on a 3-month timeline. I am considering just striking out and completing the deal without the boys. Because clearly if I bring them, they're just going to have a different... They're not going to let it happen, and then we're all going to suffer. So there's a part of me the last 2 days that has been almost messaging Curtis going, what if I just found... you know, what if I just struck out on my own, finished the deal, and got back? That is a possibility. Surprise to Curtis too.
Oh, I love it.
How I can follow that line. That is something that I would do hands down if I were Thalia.
If the boys are not going to let me do the thing that I know needs to get done.
And that like kind of the containing this sentence as briefly as I can. It's sort of what I talked about when Rachel had her headset off with Thalia. No, you can keep yours on. Okay. The internal struggles, right? Thalia knows the right thing to do. She has the knowledge. She has the power. She can do that. At what point will she just go, fuck it? Rachel will never say that word. Ever. I've tried. I've gotten it twice in a text. But I will, like, what happens? And, like, that's so juicy, and I absolutely love it, because you and Umshara would have such a good time together. Such a great time. And I'm not saying that in the cryptic evil she's going to steal your soul way.
No. They
That's
would
like-
actually have great tea time together.
And honestly, I thought it was good. Like, yeah, that's super juicy. I didn't know if you had anything else to add on to that.
No, that's I don't know how much I'm gonna... I mean, with the boys off on their adventure, they're clearly not coming back to Thalia, and they've made their move. She's gonna stay where she is, so they chose to walk away. She'll be there when they're ready.
Small counterpoint, they did extend that olive branch. But it was also freshly after that injury.
Freshly after, and also come back to us on our terms.
Also true.
Yeah.
Which, like, so juicy.
So they walk down on her. If they truly want her around, they will come back to her.
And oh god, I completely lost my train of thought because that's so good, and my brain is now spiraling off into those conversations.
Yeah, no, so is mine.
Oh my god, this would have been a great one-on-one session to do. You're just like, yeah, no. Hey, Dad, I'll be right back.
If it continues next week, if we hadn't come up with this idea, I was in the last 2 days thinking about it.
Yeah,
as an option.
Keep an eye on the Twitter because this might be a really, really spicy one-on-one episode, and I cannot wait. I'm so sorry, Erica. What was your question again?
Something to look forward to in the next 2 episodes.
In the next like 2 sessions, yeah.
I've talked to Rachel about this. Watching the boys, the gang, the meathead, the muscle. Watching the muscle go solve their problem.
Brains.
Do they?
Technically, yes. Intelligence, like there's a reason I threw a mind flare at Lamy, was because I wanted to see how hard I could hit him before his intelligence dump stat saved, like, anyway. But again, it's less of like that intelligence, the understanding brain. It's the puzzle, because they have the intuition of something is wrong here. They're trying to find Ed, which is the most on-brand thing for those two, because they've constantly been trying to find friends and get friends out of trouble. Unfortunately, as we saw in Terraborn in season 2, they tried to get out of trouble. They tried to do like the good thing, and then Thalia had to bail them out. And they tried to do... Ronan made a promised to a kid that he had no idea if he could commit to, and is sworn to this, and Thalia had to get him out because Umshara literally had his last breath in her hand. And I want to see how they resolve this problem without Thalia as a ripcord, without Thalia as a parachute. And seeing, I think part of that is like, this is what the world, this is how this team operates with one of its wheels missing. Granted, we've turned, like, the metaphorical tricycle has split. And you are the unicycle. You are the driving wheel. And they are the two back wheels. They're a hoverboard, basically. It's going to catch on fire eventually. It's just a matter of how long it takes.
Oh, no.
Depending on how you charge it. I trust them to charge their batteries responsibly. But having this puzzle, like, they're in an architect's, they're in an engineer's space, and they're just rummaging through stuff. And I know how Thalia would approach that. Going into somebody's office and looking for information and documentation. Where's Thalia going to look versus where those two are looking? And someone is opening the door to that room. And how are they going to respond under pressure? While also Ronan is 80 years old, exhausted, and they don't have a healer anymore. It's just Fighter Lami and Old Man Ronan.
I completely forgot that was a thing that, because I've been so used to Lami just like paladin dumping, healing.
He's
just, oh god.
He's a level 14 champion fighter because he crits like a bitch. Like, he crits real hard because that's been his MO. And that was a conversation that, like, I'm really curious where Lami goes with that. Going back to a vanilla fighter. Like, the fighter version you get for free with, like, the starter kit.
Mm-hmm.
He has nothing. He has no cool abilities. So it's up to him to, like, really add flavor to it. And I'm really excited to see how that world shakes out for those two. Dealing with consequences without an emergency stop. And I mean that with all the love in my heart because I want to see what happens to them. And I love that, because up until this point, Rachel, we kind of been talking, and you were like, I don't know what to do with Thalia. What is she? Does she just go back to work? Does she just stick around the city?
Don't really know.
And I love that she's like, maybe I make the impulsive choice. Maybe I just do the thing that needs doing because it needs to be done. And to hell with the consequences to my friends around me. Granted, they're not really around any right now. But, like, seeing how you guys embody each other when you're separated is such an interesting thing to kind of get a peek at. Because otherwise, even because you and Ronan were always battle buddies. During when we had 7 players, again, because it was a committee, we had to institute a fucking battle buddy system because people would run off on their own. Ronan would run off on his own, get almost eaten by velociraptors like Jurassic Park 2. But because you guys are because we are friends in real life now, because we've hung out outside of games and recording stuff. What happens when Thalia gets a little impulsive? A little more, and there's no bigger, more impulsive flashing beacon to take that impulse away, because it's so much easier to be like, I'm not going to do that because I need to keep an eye on Ronan. You don't have to keep an eye on him anymore.
Well, and here's the thing though, is like, in a way, like, the Ronan and Lami have been throwing strikes with bumpers on, because you can throw without abandon and still hit true
when you've got you got your res bucket in the back.
Yeah. And now it's just like, okay, well, the bumpers are gone. Oh, I'm shit at bowling. That's not a personal story.
No, that's a really good metaphor.
I honestly, I'm still ready for Thalia to just be like, no, this is what has to be done. I need to go take care of the archipelago stuff. If they're with me, fine. But I also need to take care of this, like, Threadripper stuff, so I'm going to do that first, because that quells everybody's issues. And then we go take care of that.
And last thing, I'm also very excited for the first time for you guys to get to meet someone. like meet an incursion
Mm-hmm.
at the landing site. Because up to this point, they've all of the timeline incursions. Spoilers: we had got into time travel. I have capital F feelings on time travel, as we've discussed. That's a different episode. But there is
Go check our stream from last week. We talk a lot about the time travel.
we play Power Wash Simulator and talk about time travel. But you guys are ahead of the curve. You guys are on. You know where the next thing is happening, so you can prepare. And like you said, you guys do a lot better when you have a second to prep.
Mm-hmm.
Especially you, Rachel / Thalia. You are the Hannibal of this team. To quote a 1980s TV show, The A-Team. Or the 2007 movie with Liam Neeson.
We don't talk about that.
Oh, no, I like that movie. It's pretty good. It's a decent action movie. But no, give me a minute, I'm good. Give me an hour, I'm great. Give me a month, I'm unbeatable. And that has always kind of been the Thalia MO, where she gets a second to think and pull on that massive repository of knowledge and bring that history to bear on the problem. It's no longer a problem. There's a particular group of trolls that got hit with a sickening radiance where you're like, no, careful spell, my friends are fine. Level of exhaustion every round. We just gotta wait this out. Like, this isn't a fight. This is a waiting game.
All right. I think actually on that note, that's a great place to end. Curtis, I know you have more to say. But...
Oh, I always have more to say. But it's your show. You're hosting. Tell me to shut up and when to hit the go away button.
It's also 10:15. And some people have to work tomorrow. So with that being like our final note of the, now I forgot what you said. It was brilliant and beautiful.
I've said so many things.
Yeah.
Most of them were not brilliant.
It was a great button. I was going to repeat it.
Oh, give me a minute, I'm good. Give me an hour, I'm great. Give me a month, I'm unbeatable.
Yes.
There you go.
So, leading up to the unbeatable Thalia, and maybe some more of the rest of the crew kind of coming to their senses. I'm not biased, I promise. Tonight ends kind of our TTRPG chance of TBD, because there's always a 5% chance of who the hell knows what goes on, because we are chaotic. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and who you are in the Ashe and Shade Committee, we'll start with Rachel, as I know we talked a lot about your character, but just to sign off.
Rachel, Thalia. And somehow I have a lot of notes that Curtis asks me questions about. I'm like, wait, what? And apparently I just throw together PowerPoints that no one else can. Or no one else can do in an hour. I don't understand.
No.
I thought that was a thing.
It's a superpower.
Please only use it for good.
Yes. You have a superpower. If I try to do a PowerPoint, it would take me 5 days. So, you're beautiful and brilliant.
Way smarter than me.
No.
Like, words. Curtis.
Hi. Yes, that's me. Hello. I'm gonna try and not make a disparaging comment about myself on this outro because that's personal growth. Hi, I'm Curtis. I am the DM and almost got one. I'm the DM of the Ashe and Shade Committee. We're running this game for about. We were running the math. It's like 3.5, 4 years.
3.5, going on 4.
Yikes! Holy shit! This is my longest running campaign, and it has been with a phenomenal group of people whom I am lucky to play with. But yeah, this has been the origination for 5% Chance as a stream, as a company, and
a recap for the longest running campaign on the channel.
Because we've been talking about doing a recap forever, and we just never got around to it. And so
about 2 years now.
Surprising no one, this good idea was brought to you by Rachel. I've got the text receipt, lady. I will tell you when you were like, I have an idea. It was weird that you sounded like Batman, but we moved past that because it was very early in the morning.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Anyway, Erica, why don't you introduce yourself to get us the hell out of here?
Once again, I am Erica. Before we leave, I would like to plug our show tomorrow. Tomorrow,
What
join
show
us
is that?
back here. Join us back here at 9 p.m. EDT, which is like Eastern Daylight Time, I guess.
Correct.
For Cyberpunk Stories in New Hope. The group is finally together. We have our mission. I am so excited. You'll see me again on stream tomorrow playing the lovely Daisy. The game is GM'd by the fantastic and phenomenal Sin at sensationally.me on most social platforms. God, this group of people that somehow we managed to pull together. It took us 4 sessions to get together because we're just chaotic, but like beautifully chaotic. But yeah, so join us tomorrow to see actually how well we work together.
Yeah,
It's gonna be fun.
she says unconvincingly.
Ooh, no, the teasers we've already gotten. I'm just like, oh god. But if you enjoy everything that we do here on this channel, the best way to support us, not only just by subscribing to our channel here on Twitch, but is by buying our merch. Not the coffee cup, but the sticker attached to it.
Anything can be 5% chance merch.
Anything can be 5% chance merch. Even your MacBook.
We sell laptops. Not really. You have to buy your own laptop separately, but then you can get the sticker.
Yeah, laptops sold separately. But we do have 4 different versions of a sticker. We have the lovely one on my teacup, which is the colored version. We have a smaller one of this size that is the 2-inch version. Thank you, Rachel. We have the clear sticker that is this one. And then we also have a black and white one, which is super cool. Which looks very similar to the clear one, except for there are very small differences, and it is only in the D1. But yeah, so go on to Sheckler Woodworking, which is where you can find all of our merch there, and also use the code 5 with the % chance and get 10% off your order, not just on stickers, but anything else on his lovely woodworking shop, because he can build you pretty much anything you ask for. Give him enough time, maybe it could be a house. I'm stealing that from Zach because he says
he's not wrong. He's also a licensed electrician, so he can wire it for you.
Yeah, he might actually be able to build you a house.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I hope the rest of y'all have a fantastic evening. I hope you enjoyed your time with us, and as always, there's always a 5% chance of TBD. Bye, y'all.
Goodbye.